maybe these fascists have a point, you know?
Dude, welcome to another episode of Video Game Book Club, the show where we pick, we play, and we discuss a video game each and every month. I'm your host, Juan Pablo JP Gomez, and with me, always, Benjamin, the Tizzlist, Toops. Ben, we have I was going to say short and sweet game to talk about today. Now, it is short, but sweet, maybe we need to add a little bit more adjectives in there. Rough, epic, kind of crazy in some moments. What game are we talking about today, Ben?
We're talking about Small Saga, man. Small Saga.
I'm so excited.
A little obvious backstory if you listen to the last episode, which you should. You already know this, but in the Video Game Book Club Discord, which you should join, this game has been recommended to us by our most loyal fan, Joe, for the better part of a year at this point. He's been telling us to play Small Saga over and over and over, and we finally said, enough, let's do it. We played Small Saga last month, and you're absolutely right. This is a short game. It came in a little under 10 hours, I think.
Yeah.
I would have to say this is the most dense sub 10-hour game I think I've ever played. Do you agree with that?
It's action-packed from the beginning. I mean, they don't want you to like meander around. I mean, they do actually want you to meander around a little bit, but every story beat in this game, everything that you have to do is just more epic and epic and epic until you finally get to the end, which is pretty insane, but we'll get there. I have to say, you said something interesting. Joe has been recommending this game for a year. Yeah. Ben, last May 2024, we recorded the first ever episode of Video Game Book Club. We have officially turned 1 year old. We've played 12, maybe 13 games now, which is pretty insane. So thank you, Ben, for this journey with me, and thank you everyone in the Discord and everyone who has joined the club and listened to us talk about video games, because they're really fun, you know?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We've not only have we played some fantastic games, but yeah, I mean, we've built a small little community, which you should definitely join if you haven't already. Made friends, had a lot of really funny, interesting discussions about the games we're playing. So it's been great. And I think JP and I are both, really excited to keep this thing going, keep growing.
Video Game Book Club will never end. That's what I'm saying. Benny, if you were to describe this game to a friend, let's say, hey, you stop someone, a stranger actually, on the streets of California, and you say, hey,
wow,
can I tell you about this game, Small Saga? What would you say? How would you describe it?
I would tell them this is like a very old school style turn-based combat game. Think like, a lot of the old Final Fantasy games set in the world of vermin, essentially. Mouse, rats, weasels, rabbits, vermin. Like, with some of the best kind of character design maybe not best, but some really good character design.
Yeah.
So turn-based combat game set against the backdrop of these warring factions of all types of vermin. It's got, like I said already, it's a very dense game. When I sat down to write my notes for the podcast, I kept surprising myself with how much happened in the story because of how short the game was. But yeah, I mean, a very compact game, but a very well-delivered story with some interesting, maybe if a little easy gameplay, but great characters, fantastic music,
yes,
good visuals, and yeah, that's kind of how I would describe it.
I think one of the things that I love the most about this game is it has, this like pixel art kind of 2D perspective a la old school like JRPGs, but then you go into battle and the perspective changes and you're kind of behind these characters and they become, I don't want to say 3D, but a little bit more, they're bigger. They're like front and center and you can see them with their fun little skills and actions that they do in battle. but the scenes that the developer has kind of created for these fights is so good. And every time I would hear that kind of rock music popping in whenever you fight an epic boss, and you have this like, oh my god, I'm just a mouse, but this feels like greater than life itself moment, was really great. I think the emphasis that, hey, you're just a little tiny mouse in this small, in London, basically you're in London, and you know, you have these like factions, like you said, and you're like fighting, and it becomes like not really Game of Thronesy, but you know, kind of like this fantasy setting, like, ooh, who's in the throne, and oh, we have to like defeat the Duke or whatever. Just yeah, it becomes great. So it just goes to show that whatever idea you have, whether it's small or large, it just, you can create such an epic story for it. But speaking of epic stories, Ben, let's get in there. At Video Game Book Club, we recap and discuss and react to the whole video game, since Ben and I, of course, played it to completion. And we're going to start from the very beginning. Ben, why don't you give me the first like 5 minutes of this game? What happens? How are you introduced to Small Saga?
Yeah, so the story opens, and you are controlling the protagonist Verm. His name is Verm,
Verm.
maybe short for Vermin.
I love Verm.
And Verm is a little rat. He is like
Benny.
a little.
He's a
What?
mouse.
Is he a mouse?
He's a mouse.
Is he technically a mouse?
For sure.
Okay, no, you're right. You're right. You're right. He is a mouse. Okay, that's fine. You're controlling
Very
a
different.
mouse, Verm, and his brother Lance,
Yeah.
and their mission is to infiltrate a horde of food controlled by the gods.
The gods.
And so-
who are they?
Very beginning of the game, we don't know who the gods are.
Mm-mm.
We the characters are talking about them a little bit, but the first, half hour of the game basically is you and your brother going through this sewer system. You come across this gang of hooligans, basically ruffians. They kind of antagonize you and your brother a little bit until you put them in their place.
Oh yeah.
You go a little further and you come across their boss, Sava, who's a shrew. And Sava possesses a weapon of the gods.
Ooh.
And it's known, it's whispered about that he has a god weapon
And he can wield it. Oof.
that he can wield. Yeah. So you come across Sava and he throws down, and it turns out his god weapon is a pocket knife. So that kind of tells you a little bit about, okay, maybe this is who the gods are, quote unquote.
It's you and me, Benny.
But so that's you. Yeah. I mean, you're right.
It's you and me. We're the gods.
We're the gods. You throw down with Sava and his gang. You beat him. He kind of dramatically falls into like this river and floats away, and he leaves behind his knife. And you're not powerful enough. You can't wield it. Neither can your brother, so you just leave it there. You continue following the path. Actually, I should say, as Sava falls down dead, he warns you not to go into the horde of food. He tells you nothing but death awaits you there. You're like, I don't
Whatever,
care.
bro.
Like, we're going to get the food. Like, who cares about you? You go up, and as you're trying to drag a bag of seeds out with your brother, the room begins to fill with like a hazy purple smoke. And it's like, uh-oh, what's happening here? And then you start hearing these big booming footsteps. Boom,
I
boom.
love those footsteps, Ben. Every time I would hear them, I was like, oh, it's so satisfying to hear those booming
is.
footsteps. It chills. Again, it's so funny. Like, a god is humans. It's us.
Yeah.
But like, to a mouse, we are that, I mean, in
Yeah.
this game, but if you put yourself in that perspective, it makes sense. And what are you hearing? You're hearing the boom footsteps. You're in a grocery store. You and your brother are like, oh my god, look at all this food. We can be rich in food for our whole lives. We just have to come over here and steal a little bit of stuff all the time. But then a door opens and you see a giant man dressed in like a whole suit, like a hazmat almost suit.
Yeah.
And it's yellow and his eyes glisten. And then you think, oh my god, we gotta get out of here. And actually, there's a really funny thing that the developer does. There's some like cans of peas at the beginning when you go towards the bag of seeds that you want to grab, to bring back to the city. it says, hands peas or something like that. And then when you're running away from the human, it says run mouse run. And I was like, oh my god, it just makes it so intense in this moment. You gotta get out of there. And so
I
you
didn't
and
notice
Lance
that. That's
start
fun.
booking it. You start booking it. You say, hey, leave the bag of seeds. We gotta get out of here. And what happens next?
So you're running out, and Verm trips and stumbles and falls into a mouse trap, and his tail is stuck. So Verm's tail is stuck in the mouse trap. You're freaking out. Lance is freaking out. Lance takes control of the situation, your brother, and he says, I'm going to distract the yellow god. You figure out a way out.
Yeah.
So Lance runs up, gets on this big, shelf of food. They're basically in a grocery store. He gets up on this shelf of food and he confronts the yellow god, who's, an exterminator. But he does it. You enter the kind of turn-based combat. You do everything you can, but your attacks essentially bounce off of him because you're a little mouse and it does nothing. And until the point where it comes back and Verm is trying to escape from the trap. And I would say this is the first time where there's like a tonal shift in the game.
Yeah.
There's, so far it's been like, very cute, very, pixel art, stuff like that. But as Verm is escaping from the trap, it gets a little dark. Do you want to talk about that?
It does. So Verm needs to get out of the trap, right? He's trying his best. You are controlling him in this like kind of like almost fight scenario, and you're just swiping your sword against the mouse trap, but nothing happens. And then all of a sudden you switch back to Lance, and the human, the yellow god, reaches his hand over to Lance, and he just squeezes him. He grabs him by his hand, by his fist, and he squeezes him. And you can see like damage numbers, and he goes, and every is like 20 HP, 30. Then it goes 150, 250, and I'm like, oh my god.
And your character has like 10 HP.
Of course, point. Yeah, your character has 10 HP. So the yellow god is killing Lance, and Verm sees that, and he decides, I need to get out of here. He grabs his sword and he cuts his own tail. So he's trapped by the tail, and so he cuts it off so he can run away. And then you can just see, as he's running in the background, the exterminator, the yellow god, with Lance in his fist and then a little tail coming out of his hand. And you realize, yeah, that's the end of Lance. And the screen kind of goes black, and you go to a different season. So the game is split into 4 seasons. You start like in spring, and then you go to summer. And this is something that I wanted to mention. This game emphasizes a lot, like time, because in mice especially only live about 2 years. So if you think about it, like a whole season passes, that's an eighth of the mouse's life. So that's a lot of time, if you can think about what's an eighth of our life, maybe 10 years,
it's like 10
maybe
years,
a little more. So 10 years pass basically, and you find Verm. You're controlling Verm again. You look a little bit different. You have a cape. The cape he's using so that he can hide the fact that he doesn't have a tail. He looks a lot more rough. He looks gruff. And what is he wielding but the pocket knife from Saga? So he gained the strength to pick up the pocket knife. And he's on a quest. So what is he doing? So you control Verm again. You kind of pass the intro section, and you are in a house. So you're in a human household. And I think you're just trying to look for food, but you're just really trying to get through the house so you can go to your next quest point that you don't really know what that is at this point. And you fight a cat. This cat jumps in the frame. And I love that the developer does this. There's like really normal wording or text boxes when like the characters talk. But when like someone really powerful or evil or something jumps in, this like really eerie, like squiggly text appears. And, there's no voice acting or anything, but when you press X to go to the next text box, there's like another like loud booming voice, boom, that goes to the next one. And you think, ooh, the developer can make these scenes very, I don't want to like overuse the word epic, but he emphasizes like how like this is really important right now, and this is like you are in front of like an evil like character that literally wants to kill you. Like, yes, this game is about mice and it's like
yeah,
cute, but like they will not hesitate to
and
get you.
is significantly more powerful than you too.
Significantly more
So
powerful than you. So you have this fight with the cat, and you can't do any damage. You can't do any damage, and he just basically throws you out. He's like, "What are you doing here, mouse?" And then he tosses you to the backyard, basically, where you get rescued by a little tiny character. And this little tiny character has an interesting name that I did not know how to pronounce. And I had to ask Ben, and I had to ask my wife Katie, and the name is Sayo Bam. But really,
no, no.
no, you pronounce it Siobhan.
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 Yeah.
It's
So it's like a kind of an Irish name. Basically.
kind of an Irish name, Siobhan.
Yeah.
And Siobhan rescues you, and she's a mole. She's a tiny like garden mole, and she lives in this underground like mole city right outside of the house where this cat lives, and the cat's name, or they call him the Tiger. So Tiger lives there, and basically Siobhan brings you down, and she wants to like take care of you. You wake up and you're like, "What are you doing? Where am I?" And it's like, "Well, you're in Crane Bale, I think maybe." And he's like, "Okay, I don't really care. Thank you so much for helping me, but like, I'm on a mission right now. You know, we realize that Verm has changed. He is no nonsense. He doesn't really care about anyone but his mission, and he just wants information. So he's like, I want to go talk to the Queen of Crane Bale because I want to ask her a question."
Basically, his only goal at this point, he is like totally single track minded, total tunnel vision. His only goal is to find and kill the yellow god that killed his brother.
Yeah.
So he goes to the ruler of Crambell and essentially asks for information. Do you know anything about the yellow god? The people of Crambell and the ruler specifically instantly rebuke this because in their mind they have a very peaceful existence. They live, near the gods, basically outside this house, and they don't want to provoke the gods in any way. They don't want to mess with them because if they do that, that could result in attacks against them. Basically, if you see moles in your yard, you might call an exterminator, basically. So they tell him, we're not helping you, get out of here, basically. And so Verm is like, whatever, I don't really care. But Siobhan is like, she stands up for you. She's like, you can't treat Verm like this, what are we doing? And kind of follows after him. So Siobhan wants to help Verm. Siobhan takes Verm to kind of her hideout where she has some god tools stored, and she reveals that she has a god weapon herself in the form of a little lighter. And she says, "Let's use this. Let's go back to Tiger. We'll challenge him again, and we'll beat him." So you do that. Her lighter is much more effective against Tiger, so you're able to defeat Tiger the second time. And then you go back to the village, and they go to the ruler, and they're like, "Mom, we defeated Tiger.
Mommy.
He's not going to, terrorize our village anymore. We're safe." And again, they're like, "What are you doing? You're antagonizing the gods. You're going to get us all killed."
Yeah.
And they are exiled. The ruler, her mother, says, "You need to leave. Be on your way. You can't be here anymore." So you're cast out. Verm and Siobhan are on their way. They kind of head to a nearby kingdom. They want to head to the nearby kingdom of Murida because Siobhan has an idea that the king and the court there may have info about the Red God. And as they leave, Siobhan's mother kind of sends like a tale, basically, or puts out information about where they're going, because at the end of the day she cares about her daughter. She wants the king of Murida to kind of know they're coming, basically, and to know that she's with kind of this vagabond, I guess, for a better word.
Yeah, it's basically like a warrior mouse and a princess basically are running amok, and everyone needs to be aware of this. But this is a really interesting thing. The first time that the game asks you, the player, a question of what you just did, is this right or is it not right? And you have all of these questions that the game asks of you to think about when you have all these fights. The mommy, that's how Siobhan calls her, which I was thought was so funny.
Yeah.
So mommy's like, let's not disturb Tiger. Let's, like, there's a lot of lore books everywhere in this game, and in Cranebale there's books about the old way and what the old way should be, and they're like very like they're more like religious and like simple, and they just live like they don't want to bother anyone, but we live by these rules. Anything that is a god weapon or a god tool we will not use. We don't want to disturb the gods. We'd rather just live next to them in hiding, because if we disturb them, then what's going to happen? They're going to be mad at us and they're going to unleash their fury at us, which is calling a yellow god, calling an exterminator, and killing everyone. And so Mami is like, Siobhan, like, you need to know these things. Like, you're just a young, like, kid basically that is trying to do whatever, but there's very severe consequences to the things that you do. And you as a player, you just had a lot of fun. You're like, yeah, let's this very fun fight. Like, I have a new party member. She can wield fire weapons. Like, this is great. But everything that you do has a consequence, and it's cool that they talk about it. But here in Craneville, you can also talk to a bunch of NPCs. You can do a bunch of stuff. And there's one of them. I don't know, he's like in his house, and he offers you advice. And so this is like one of those NPCs that you have in video games where they like teach you stuff. And we haven't talked about the combat and how it works too much, but the way the combat works is like very JRPG, very, turn-based, just like normal. The players go first, they do their actions, and then the enemies they do their actions, and then you go back and forth. The way that you do use your ability is very simple. You have AP, you have action points, and it's small. You have like 2 action points at the beginning, and attack is 1 action point, and maybe one of your skills is 2 action points. Every turn, you recover 1 action point. There's skills that give you extra action points. There's items that give you extra action points, and that's kind of how you go. You want to stack your action points, use a lot of skills, and defeat the people. But he also talks about how there's like a rock, paper, scissors aspect to the game. You have like 3 different weapon types: piercing damage, slash damage, and blunt damage. And he's like, hey, remember to try all the different damage weapons and see what will affect the enemy the most. And that's all he says. And you're like, cool, thank you, super simple tutorial, now we know how to play, let's get out of here. And then so this thing happened before you head to Merida, which I think Verm already knew. Like, he wanted to go to Merida. That's like his destination, because he knows that that's where the king is. He's basically wants to talk to the king and see like what they can do against the yellow god, basically, or what information he can get. But he wants to do it alone. So Siobhan, she's also been exiled, and she's like, well, what am I going to do? I want to go with you. I want to become a warrior. My dad was a warrior, and I want to do that. And Verm is like, no, like, I don't care. I'm going to go by myself. Okay, bye. And then he walks away, and as soon as he walks away, this like booming headache overcomes him, and he like kneels down, and then he just says like, ugh, and then he walks back, and he's like, all right, fine, you can come. And this happens a lot throughout the game. Verm gets these like consciousness hits, where like his conscious, or maybe you can interpret it as like Lance from the Greater Beyond telling him, hey man, you have to be good, or you have to do what's right, and it's like the way of the developer kind of obviously steering the plot in the direction that they wanted it to go. And also just, Verm will eventually have some plot development on why that happens, and how, he'll actually start being a more altruistic warrior instead of just like, get out of my way, I am going to defeat the yellow god. I don't care about literally anything else other than defeating the yellow god. So how do you travel around in a big city like London when you're just a little mouse and a little mole? Well, you find one of the most fun characters probably in the game.
Yeah, so you're on your way out of Cranbell with Siobhan. Eventually Verm agrees for Siobhan to come along. So on their way out, they come across an animal trapped in a garbage can. And so, they're tiny little creatures. They can't open the lid. So Siobhan, in her great wisdom, because she's like, the mage character essentially, um, she concocts a plan to use like a ruler in the trash nearby as a lever to jump on and fling the can open. So they do that. It works. And out flies Dizzy, the pigeon. So a pigeon was trapped in. He comes out, and he turns out to be essentially a cab driver. He carries a little basket, and he says, thanks for getting me out. Um, he's like, I'll take you wherever you want to go, basically. So this is kind of the game's main form of like transportation. This is kind of how you do fast travel, but it's kind of fun because it's not just like, a map where you select a location. You like physically control the pigeon flying. It brings you to like kind of a 2D representation, 2D kind of 3D like weird perspective, but you control Bruce or excuse me, Dizzy, and you just fly around with the little critters in your basket, and you go to your next location.
It's like a
And so the next
tabletop like
location,
board game basically perspective.
yeah,
It's just a
that's a good.
tabletop
That
map
yeah,
and you just fly around it, yeah. And you go to the next
that's a good way to
location.
describe it. But yeah, and so the next location you go to is Murida. But upon entering the city of Murida, which is located in the sewers beneath London, you get to the gate and you're immediately turned away. The guy at the gate is a pretty funny character, and he tells you essentially, we're not taking anybody right now. Get out of here. And Bruce, or excuse me, I
Oh,
keep saying
whoa,
Bruce.
whoa.
I wonder why. But Verm and Shaban, they hear a little whisper from the side saying, "Hey, hey, come over here. I know a way in." And you go and you meet the next character, who is
Bruce. He's Bruce, and he is a squirrel, a red squirrel, and he's wearing
yeah,
pretty fun outfit, and he has a pencil. He's kind of wielding a pencil. You don't really know what it is right now, but he speaks really funny. He has kind of like a Scottish accent, I'm pretty sure. Again, they don't speak, but it's written kind of funny as if were Scottish. And
yeah.
he says, "Hey man, I know a shortcut, not a shortcut, but I know like a secret tunnel that can get us into Merida. So let's go." And then Verm's like, "Okay, if you know the secret tunnel, why didn't you just go yourself? Like, why are you waiting out here?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I don't know. I think it's better if we all go together." And then Berm's like, "Okay, fine, and so they all walk in, and it's basically a series of like tunnels, basically, that you go through. There's cockroaches that you have to fight. Those are like the mobs of this kind of dungeon, let's call them. Very easy. And Bruce doesn't fight. So Bruce is like, "Nope, I am a pacifist, I mean. I will not fight. I'm just going to hang around here." And Berm's like, whatever, So you fight until you get to the boss of the dungeon. And it's a big octopus. And the octopus was funny because he was like saying like very cryptic things as you were going through the dungeon. And I thought it was funny that only Berm could hear it. Which I was like, okay, I mean, I'm sure everyone can hear it, but only Berm was like, "I think there's something going on." Berm's like, "Yo, we need your help. Bruce, come on, jump in. We can't fight this big octopus without you." And he's like, "All right, fine, but I don't do any damage." He's like, "I don't attack. I just will try to use this flute." So he has a flute. The pencil is his flute. And he's like, "I'll just use the flute and help you." So he has really two skills, and basically he's your bard / support character. He can make you go again, like give you an extra turn. So you like get more AP, and then you can do something different. Or he can heal. Cool. So with his help, you defeat the octopus, and you go through and get to Merida. And as soon as you get into Merida, it's like a huge city sprawling with a lot of NPCs. You go to like the kind of like the main square of the town, and it has this huge statue. You can save your game at these like shrines, basically. And then I was like, okay, let's do a little bit of exploring, And then I realized, oh my God, Merida is gigantic. Like we were in Craneville, and it was such a small little town with like maybe 5 houses or something. You're in Merida, and it just goes on forever. You can find so much stuff in here. So yeah, I thought that was really cool how the game really opens up when you get there. You get side quests, you get a bunch of shops and stuff that you can do. And one little thing that I want to call out the developer in right now.
Oh,
Oh, there's two mice. One of them is wearing an Argentina jersey. The other one, I don't know, maybe like a Brazil jersey or something like that. And they're kicking a ball around, and they're playing paw ball, just like soccer or football. And if you interact with the ball, you can actually kick it around. So
yeah.
I was like kicking the ball around, and I was hoping that I could do something with this, so they would open up some sort of secret passage, or like if I passed it to the right NPC, like I would get something. But it doesn't give you anything. But anyways, I think that would have been really fun, but unlucky.
I just thought it was cool you could interact with the ball at all. The first time I like intercepted the pass and was able to kind of dribble it around, I thought it was cool. But yeah, I think kind of same experience as you there. But yeah, I mean, compared to where we've been so far, Murita is huge.
Gigantic.
The party kind of splits up here. So Bruce
Yep.
accompanied you through the sewers, but you get in Murita, and he's essentially like, okay, like I'm here to find my bandmate that I got split up with, and I'm out of here. Like, see you later.
Deuces.
We may never see Bruce again. Who knows? He's gone. And so yeah, so Siobhan and Verm also kind of split up here. Siobhan wants to go do research and try to, figure out stuff about the Yellow God, whereas Verm wants to go to the court to try to kind of alert the king and seek information as well from that source. So you kind of get to play both parts here. This is maybe the first time the game does that, where
Yeah.
you have to play from multiple kind of simultaneous perspectives. I think you start with Siobhan here. So
Yes, you
Siobhan
do.
goes to the Plague Master. The Plague Master is kind of the court scientist, I guess you could say. He's wearing like a plague doctor outfit, which is really cool. Siobhan meets him, and he essentially, or she asks him about if he has any knowledge of the Yellow God. And that clearly strikes a chord with him in some way. He's like, Yellow God, how do you know of this? Like, where did you hear of this? What information do you have? And Siobhan's just like, I'm asking you for information, basically. Like, I need to know what's going on myself. So she doesn't get a lot of information, and the Plague Master kind of runs off to alert the king himself. He's like, the king needs to hear of this. I think we then go to Verm. Verm is kind of going to the royal court and getting kind of stonewalled. They're not really letting him in. I think you can kind of, before you go to the court, you can do kind of a few side questy things. Like, the game just kind of gives you the whole city and says, like, go for it, basically.
Do your thing.
So there's a few kind of funny encounters you can have, and like some side quests you can start.
There's something interesting that the developers do, or the developer, one person did, is that the game is kind of like isometric in nature, and sometimes, like, when you do that, you kind of lose a little bit of what perspective is what. Like, things are behind certain buildings, and the developer had a little bit of fun with that. There's like a section where there's maybe like an L-shaped building, and because of our kind of isometric perspective and this 2D nature of the game, you can't really see, but you can actually go into that L spot, and there's a hidden character there because you can't see them, but then you have an interaction button, and it's like, ooh, shh, don't tell anyone I'm here. Okay, here, I'll give you some money. And then they give you money, and they do stuff like that. I think there's something that Ben missed about this game is that there's a person that is like fishing in like a trash river, let's say, or like a trash pile, and it's really hard to see if you can actually get there, because the way that the buildings look, it looks like the side of a building is kind of like cutting off the path to get to this person. But no, it's not. Again, it's because it's isometric 2D perspective. I think it's like a visual kind of thing that happens that you can't really see what's going on, but you can just walk over, and instead of being the side of the building, you realize, no, it's the top of another building, but you just can't see that building. Anyways, you talk to this guy, and you get a game cartridge for the Game Dude, which is a Game Boy that is sitting in Siobhan's hideout, so you can go and play that game, which is pretty fun. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do. You meet like, these two mice that like to paint, or they're rats maybe that like to paint, and they're like, oh, we need some paint. Can you go find us some paint? You meet someone else that gives you like a, hey, I'm gonna mark on your map, I know that there's a treasure right here, go find it, or whatever. So very basic JRPG stuff that you can do. But when you go to the palace as Verm's like, I need to see the king. And then, just like any time a hero in a game or a series needs to go see the king, they're like, well, no, you don't. Like, you can't just walk in here and see the king. You have to, like, visitation hours are not right now, and they say you need an appointment. And the next appointment we can give you is in 3 months. And he's like, oh my God, that's way too long. Of course, 3 months, again, with the time thing, 3 months is like an eternity for mice, right? So he's like, well, whatever, we can't do it. It's cool. I'm going to get out of here. As he's leaving the palace, he finds the same two hooligans that he fought in the prologue of the game with his brother Lance. And, their reunion isn't great. They are, mad at each other still, of course. They ask him, so where's your brother at? And he's like, oh, I'm fighting you right now. So you fight them, you defeat them, and then they're like, what are you doing here? And he's like, well, I'm looking for the yellow god or whatever. And the hooligans are like, okay, we actually heard that in the Sky Garden city, which is another neighboring city, there's someone there that knows about the yellow god. And he's like, oh, okay, what? For real? And they're like, yeah, for real. And then he's like, okay, I'm on my way, And so you go back to like the courtyard area where the shrine is, and then you meet with Siobhan, and then you go to the next thing. But before that happens, you change perspective once more, and you find Bruce also is planning something. So you go to Bruce's perspective. He's in like a tavern area, and he finds his bandmate, who is his boyfriend, Anton. Anton and Bruce. Anton. And Anton and Bruce, they have a plan. They also want to go to Sky Garden, and they want to steal something from the Sky Garden. And they're looking around, who's going to help us? We're not thieves. We're just, band people. We're musicians. And you're going to have to help me here. What animal is this?
So they're like you said, they're looking for somebody to help them with the heist, right? Because the plan is they're musicians, they're going to put on a performance, distract the king, and someone's going to go in and steal the family heirloom that Bruce is after. So they ask around the bar, nobody wants to do it, and then out of nowhere appeals this little thief, and the little thief is a jerboa.
Never
a
heard of a jerboa.
Basically a tiny little mouse with like huge legs that kind of jumps around. It's very cute. You should look it up if you haven't seen them. But very cute. His name, or his or her, I don't know if it's established, but they introduce themselves as Jabari. Jabari essentially says, I'm a great thief. I'll help you out. Bruce and Anton are like, how do we know you're a great thief? And Jabari's like, because I stole this out of your pocket, already. They like have some seeds or something. Yeah. And they're like, all right.
Yeah, good thief. You got okay. You got the job, guy.
And so they now also are heading to Sky Garden. So they're also going to Sky Garden. It kind of, you go back to, you arrive at Sky Garden. Yep. First arrives Bruce and Anton and Jabari. And they are going to kind of put in motion their plan. So everything starts, you walk into Sky Garden, which is this giant tree filled with gray squirrels. There's some, I don't know exactly when this is introduced, but you gather through talking to some NPCs there that the gray squirrels and the red squirrels do not like each other. No. The red squirrels basically aren't around anymore because there was like a war between the two factions. The gray squirrels won, and now they're in power. Bruce, as we said, is a red squirrel, which is why he's wearing this kind of costume. He has a mask on. He has kind of a full body costume on, and that's why he's essentially concealing his identity as a red squirrel, because if he walked in as a red squirrel, the gray squirrels would arrest or kill him on sight.
For sure.
But so they go in talking to some NPCs before the performance, you kind of gather that the citizens of Skygarden aren't super happy with the current situation.
No.
They don't love their rulers. The rulers are not very beneficial to them. So you go to the king, you start your performance. It triggers a little mini game where Bruce and Anton are playing their instruments, and you kind of have to hit different hotkeys, like a QuickTime event, along with the music, which is fun.
The music is so good in the game too, and the songs, the original songs that they created, made for this game are great.
Yeah. While the performance is happening, Jabari is upstairs in the royal vault, and he sneaks in. He undetected grabs the family heirloom, and he's about to escape out of the window perfectly, but he has to take the opportunity to antagonize basically the general of the guard that's in that room patrolling.
And the general was trying to remember what the song was that they were playing. He's like, "What song is that?" And he kept saying the wrong song name. And then Jabari's like, "It's this song." I kind of forgot what the name is. The Lone Mouse or something like that. And he's like, "Oh, thank you." And he's like, "What? What are you doing?" You know? And that sets off alarms, you know. And so he goes tells
But Jabari
the king,
escapes.
Yes,
yeah, Jabari escapes.
escape.
But now, like you were about to say.
He goes tell the Duke is not the king, right? The king is in Merida. He goes tells the Duke, and the Duke is like, "Oh my God, we've been duped," you know. He loved the play. Like, he's saying to Anton and Bruce, like, "I don't think it's y'all, but also it's kind of weird that you're wearing a mask," he tells to Bruce, "and can you take the mask off?" And he's like, nah, I don't need to do that. You loved our performance. Just like, relax, my guy. And he's like, no. You need to take off the mask right now. And then again, Bruce is like, no. And then, you know, the game gets a little serious. There's this stoat, which is like a ferret, next to the Duke. She's giant. Her name is Lamia, and she is the undefeated, peerless, like, warrior or whatever. No one can defeat her. She's the strongest. And she kind of like puffs up her chest too. And he's like, "Hey, you gotta take your mask off," you know. Obviously, they realize that he is a red squirrel, and so they throw him in the dungeon. Arrest him immediately. At this point, the perspective changes, or not yet. Do you go through the dungeon first? I think you do. Sorry, excuse me. So you go to the dungeon, and you meet another character, a white rat or a white mouse. I'm not sure if they're a mouse. I think it's a rat. It's a rat. You know that white mice or white rats are usually lab, mice and rats. So that's kind of like a really interesting backstory that Gwen has that we'll get to. I said her name. So Bruce meets Gwen, and Gwen is also trapped in this dungeon. And he's
Gwen
like,
first introduces herself as Dragon. Bruce is like, "Who are you?" And Gwen's like, "You can call me Dragon."
And she's been counting the days to escape. And now that Bruce is here, Bruce is like, "Man, what are we gonna ever get out of here?" And she's like, "Yeah."
She's like, "We can get out right now."
Like, "Let's do it now." And then he's like, "Wait, what?" And then she's like, "Yeah, actually, they attached this like chain ball or whatever, weighted ball on my leg, but look at this." And then she takes her leg off, and she's like, "I can just take this leg off because it's a prosthetic, and I can pop it back in, and I'm out." And he's like,
"And also, cool. The door is just open."
Yeah, and then she's like, "The door's open, bro." And then they open the door, which is really funny. But I think Gwen, before she does that, she asks Bruce to do some sort of like stealth mission. Of course, there's always like a stealth mission that you have to do just to prove himself as like a strong-willed squirrel. I guess I was gonna say person, but a strong-willed squirrel, and that's how they became friends. So they're escaping together. They go through a series of fights together. Gwen kind of like uses like a longer sword or like a spear is kind of her weapon of choice. She plays more of like a
It's actually a scalpel. So her weapon is a scalpel. Like you go into the supply closet and find the weapon that was confiscated from her. And it's a scalpel, which, it plays like a spear. She essentially has a polearm, but the fact that it's a scalpel kind of tells you some more about her backstory, basically.
More about her backstory. She also wields a weapon of the gods, so she's strong. and she's like, "Let's get out of here." She plays kind of like a support-ish character too, kind of like a thief-ish. Her whole thing is that she can like break shield and break sword, so decreases the attack damage or the defense of enemies and stuff. That's kind of what she does.
Yeah.
And you are breaking out, and then you switch perspectives, and you go back to Verm and Siobhan. Verm and Siobhan make it to the Sky Gardens. Now you're there with them. They're like, okay, let's go in. Let's figure out who knows about what. He realizes that something has happened in the building because everyone's kind of like running around like in alert, and they're like, no, you can't see the king, or the duke. Something has just happened. It's like, all right, well, shit. They talk to someone and they say, well, we just threw this red squirrel and this hamster into dungeons, and they're like, wait, we know a red squirrel. That's Bruce. And Siobhan's like, hey, we have to go and save them. And Verm's like, I don't think so. And then Siobhan's like, no, we have to go do it. And then again, another like consciousness strikes him in the head, and he's like, all right, fine, let's go save them. So as they're walking into the dungeons, Gwen and Bruce are walking out, and they meet together. And for the first time in this whole game, you have your full party together, and you fight a really interesting character. His name is Captain Aiden, and Captain Aiden is wearing a fascist uniform, and he uses a like robot toy dog as his like weapon kind of choice. And so they're fighting, you fight this dog and you fight Aiden as the four characters for the first time. So that's again like another kind of fun thing. You kind of start seeing, okay, how the game is going to work. Your DPS is kind of like Verm and Siobhan. Your support character that like helps with debuffs is Gwen, and then Bruce is there just to heal and give people extra turns and stuff. So you fight the fight, and then you're like, okay, we gotta get out of here. They're looking for us. This is not good. And we have some information that I failed to mention, that you get some information that you have to go through the Glooming Woods to find the K-Leech. I don't know how to say that.
K-Leech, something like that. Yeah, I don't know.
You have to go to the K-Leech. Anton's like, Bruce is like, what about Anton? We have to save him. And they're like, no, there's no time. So sorry, we'll get him maybe later or never. Which is really sad. I was like, man, that sucks. And they push him out basically, and you run to the Glooming Woods.
Yeah. So, yeah, like you said, this is the first time the party is all together. This is kind of the party we're going to be sticking with for the rest of the game. So you kind of start developing some of the relationships between them and kind of some of the banter and stuff like that. But
which there's there's a lot of banter that we're not. It's hard to like recap banter, but they every time someone says something, someone has something to say back, and they all have their own personalities, and it's the banter's really good, and the writing in general. I wrote in my notes that it feels homey. And maybe that's something that like indie games in general make you feel that way. It's not forced. It's just kind of like homey. It's not very like I don't know. It's like not huge words or anything like maybe like a real writer would want to do in like a big AAA game. It's just kind of like, hey, this is what's going on, and this is why it's funny. It's a lot more simple, which works.
It's kind of written how like we would speak, basically. It's like written using common language, not like very floral, poetic language. But yeah, totally right. The writing in this game is really good. So our party is together now, and they are heading to the Ashen Tower, which is in, I think the area is called the Gloomwood. Is that correct?
The
Glooming Woods. The Duke kind of reticently told Verm that the Kalik that they're looking for is in the Ashen Tower in the Glooming Woods. So they head there, and the Glooming Woods is essentially a maze. So as you enter, the party gets split up 2 and 2. I think Verm is with Gwen, and Bruce is with Siobhan. And they're kind of independently going through this maze. They come across in 2 separate encounters the Scissor Sisters, who are members of the Thimble Guard from Murida, who have been sent to find Siobhan and Verm. They essentially are looking for the description they're looking for is a royal mole and a vagabond mouse. And Verm and Siobhan are split up, so they don't fit that description, right? Because it's just one, not
Yeah.
not one or the other, not together. I think there's a couple ways for this encounter to go. One of them, I think you just get off scot free no matter what, but the other can be a fight or not a fight, and I think it's dependent on whether or not you like helped the Scissor Sisters
Find each
in
other.
Merida find
Yeah.
each other.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I don't think I did that. And so I think I got the fight in this encounter. Did you get the peaceful option?
Yes. So I helped. I think their name is Macy and another name. And I don't know. But
Yeah,
Macy is
I
like
don't know.
always late or whatever. And her sister's like, oh my God, I'm going to kill her. She's always late. You can find her and you're like, hey, you should go meet with your sister because I think you got something to do right now. So I was Siobhan and Bruce. That's the first fight. And I talked to the sister, and the sister's like, "Hey, have you guys seen? Wait a minute, are you the mole and the? You're not a mouse. And do you know any? Do you know a vagabond mouse?" And you can say yes or no, you know. And I said,
Nope.
"Nope." And then she's like, "Okay," and then she walks away, and you don't fight her. And I'm like, okay, that was pretty funny and easy. Then I got to Verm and Gwen, and I was like, ooh, I kind of, Gwen's a new character. Verm and Gwen are both like really strong. I want to fight. Like, I want to fight with them. So I fought the other sister with them. I beat her and I win. And then this is something that we haven't talked about, but I leveled up. And the way the level ups work in this game is you don't have experience points or anything when you fight. There's no like grinding or anything at all. Every fight is kind of like measured in the game. And so as you fight these mandatory fights from dungeons and from bosses or from like story beats and stuff that happens, the game gives you level ups if you like meet those criteria. So you go to the first dungeon, everyone levels up, no questions asked. You go to the second dungeon, everyone levels up. But there's instances like side quests and like moments like this where you can choose whether to fight or not to fight. And if you do end up fighting or if you do certain side quests, you level up. And so that's a moment in the game where I thought, well, there's like risk and reward, and the risk is you're not getting levels, so you won't complete your skill tree. Every character has their own skill tree. They learn abilities, they get health, damage, attack damage, and more AP points in battle. But you don't get them if you do funny stuff like this or if you don't do side quests. Whereas if you try to fight everything that moves, you probably will be rewarded with some more levels and you can probably complete the skill tree. I don't think I completed it. I did everything, I think, and I still was like 4 or 5 levels away from completing the skill tree. Well, this is something that happened, right? I didn't get the level up on Siobhan and Bruce, so that's something that I was missing. But I don't think you can fill out everyone's skill trees. But anyways, you go, you fight it, you're back together again with the gang, and then you find Jabari. And Jabari is also lost in this maze, and he's jumping for joy. He's like, I got the heirloom, I got the heirloom. And then Bruce is like, what the hell? Like, what? You left us. You like didn't do your job properly. You're a terrible thief. Like, I'm so mad at you. I'm going at you right now. And Bruce has this whole time you have not been able to attack with Bruce. He's again a pacifist. He only like plays his flute to do support actions, but he learns whack, and so he can whack with his pencil flute enemies now, and basically just have to whack Jabari a few times, and he kind of gets that anger out, and you learn that, and that's a little bit of character progression from Bruce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you defeat Jabari, you get the family heirloom back, and now the gang is back together, and they go to enter the Ashen Tower. So
Ooh.
the Ashen Tower is another big tree, a big oak tree that looks very similar to Sky Garden, but it is like burned down, basically. It's like kind of a rotting, decrepit tree. You go in, and all of the structures inside. There's a really smart reference here to the poem Ozymandias. Maybe some of our viewers know that, but there's 2 trunks of stone and nothing else remains. That was a smart reference, I thought. But there's basically everything inside is crumbling. There's the remains of a civilization here. Bruce comes across kind of the ghosts of some of his ancestors, some gray squirrels. And they make their way up and enter the throne room. And the throne room is totally pitch black. And Verm calls out, "Is the Kalik here?" And these two glowing yellow eyes open. And they say, the Kalik is dead. I am her child, basically. And I possess some of its wisdom, so I'll permit you to ask me a question. Verm asks about the Yellow God, obviously, because that's what we're here to do.
Of course.
And I I don't know. I forget. Does the Kalik provide any information here? I
I
don't
think I
remember
think they
quite.
say something cryptic, but I don't think they say
Yeah,
anything substantial about the Yellow God. Yeah.
yeah. But then essentially the Kalik is like, Verm gets a little frustrated, the Kalik gets a little frustrated, and it's like, yo, let's attack them. But then the one pair of eyes becomes four pairs of eyes, and you go into this, and there's a boss fight. It's an epic encounter. The music swells, and it's four owls.
Yeah.
So there's four owls, which if you are a mouse, an owl is a very
The
scary
scariest
sight.
thing. Yeah.
So you're this party of little rodents against four mice, and it's boss fight time. This is kind of a good opportunity to say that, the boss fights in this game are awesome. They're very well presented, but they're not very difficult.
No.
So it's a super cool boss fight, but it ends up being like pretty easy. It's kind of a classic turn-based setup where each owl kind of has a different strength. Like
Yeah.
one gives the rest of them shields, one does damage, one heals the party, one does this, one does that. Um, so you kind of have to pick and choose which one you want to kill first and kind of whittle them down one by one. So it's a cool fight, not too hard, but
No.
whatever.
It's that's why. Yeah. Again, the boss fights are incredible. The scenes are amazing. They really have made an epic battle format, with the perspective change, with looking straight on at the enemies as if you are part of the squad or the party, kind of like right next to Verm, and every time the next character goes, you kind of go behind them as if you are playing with them.
Yeah.
But I mean, you win in like three turns, because you're just so strong. And if you know how to play JRPGs and you're just not just like hitting everyone, you can use the Encore ability to give Siobhan overclock, and you just stack overclock. I think I stacked like overclock 7, and then I went all the way to like 15 one time just to see if there was a cap, and you just keep going.
That's
And I
hilarious.
overclocked, and then I dealt like so much damage that I got them all, like so easy. I think 2 of them I got it with the first attack, and then I just, raged with Verm, and boom, boom, and then you're done.
Let's go.
But again, I think you can't fault the developer for wanting to make a narrative focused game with combat sprinkled in. The whole combat system. Yes, there is a system, but it's not super deep. It's just there because it's fun and because you are fighting. But it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
But basically, you defeat them, and then you go into you light up the room, and you realize that you are in like the previous throne room, I guess, of the Red Squirrel clan. And Bruce deposits the family heirloom on this like pedestal where it's supposed to go, and it almost like lights up the room with like very colorful colors, because that's the maybe flag or something that the Red Squirrel clan had. On the way there, like you said, there was all these spirits that you kind of like passed and walked by, and that represents like the family and the clan that Bruce has lost. But it's time to get some revenge. We're angry, Ben. We want to fight the
angry.
gray squirrels. What are we going to do? And so we start devising a plan, and someone says this and someone says that. And Verm, every time they like think about a plan, he says the craziest thing. And what's the craziest thing that we did in this case, Benny?
So we leave the party devising their plan, and it cuts back to Sky Garden. So you are kind of, there's 2 guards on top of the watchtower, just kind of looking out. It's the morning. They're kind of keeping watch on the tower, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in swoops the party, all four party members riding all four owls from before. They're riding the owls, flying in on Sky Garden. It's a very cool moment
Very cool moment.
visually. The squirrels of Sky Garden are shooting at them with fireworks.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe it would have been fun to have like a little mini game here where you like dodge the fireworks, but whatever. They fly in and it's go time. They begin an assault on Sky Garden.
Yeah.
They land. It kind of becomes like a three-tiered assault
Yes.
because you have the owls attacking the top, you have the prisoners that have just been released by Jabari
And
and
Anton.
the rest of the crew and Anton.
Yeah.
Because yeah, Jabari, to make things right with Bruce, basically goes back in to release Anton. They release the rest of them. So, um, and then in the middle of all this, the middle of the tree is the party taking on the throne room, basically. So the Duke escapes higher in the tree, and all these waves of guards start coming in. So, you know, you go through them one by one, but they keep coming. But help arrives from the revolt, basically, that's now happening at the bottom of the tree. They come up, all the disgruntled citizens, the prisoners, they all rush the guards and give our party the opportunity to escape. We go up the tree. You have it. This is it. It kind of starts like a boss rush mode. There's like multiple bosses in quick succession here. The first one is the general of the guard who has like a Nerf gun.
Like
I
a
think
Nerf
it
gun.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's his weapon of choice. Not, you know, not a hard fight. Not
No.
super interesting in a ton of ways. But the next boss fight
Ooh.
is Lamia, the Blade Master. Lamia, the peerless stoat. And we are very scared of her. She is a very scary person. She is peerless, like she says. She kind of explains to you why she's called peerless during the fight. She says that basically the squirrels kind of eradicated a lot of the other stoats, and she's peerless now not only because there's no one that can best her in combat, because she physically has no peers.
Yeah.
um, so you kind of start getting the vibe here that she's essentially a mercenary. She's only working for the guard here because they kind of give her tribute. They allow her to live. They let her eat the prisoners occasionally because she eats mice and squirrels. Um, so you're going through this boss fight. It's proceeding pretty normally. And you get her to around half HP, and reinforcements for her arrive. So a guard comes up and she's like, you know, Lieutenant Lamia, I'm here to assist you. And Lamia's like, perfect timing. And here is another one of those tonal shift moments. This is a crazy moment. Do you want to describe it for us?
You have like every boss fight, you have this like booming music and it's very colorful. And all of a sudden, the music just cuts off. The screen goes white, and all you can see is a silhouette of Lamia and the squirrel that's next to Lamia. And Lamia grabs the squirrel, lifts him up, and then you just hear munch, 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 munch. And the eyes and the mouth that they gave Lamia in this like silhouette form, super scary. Then Lamia has this pose where he's like, she puts her hand on her face and she's like, has blood dripping all over her. And she's like, now I'm satisfied, or something like that. I don't know. She said something cool. I can't remember what she said, but it's such an epic moment. Lamia she gets fed the prisoners, and she gets fed not people, I guess, rodents. And in exchange, she gives like her sword or whatever to the Duke. And this sort of transaction is kind of what's going on. And it's super intense. So she heals, she goes into like a rage mode. She's a lot stronger, and you just fight her and eventually defeat her. Again, these boss fights are not super difficult, but they are epic. So the kind of like emotion that they wanted you to feel is felt through the fight, but it's not like a super involved fighting, you know. But you defeat her, and then you have this funny moment where and we failed to mention this, but you're in a tree, right? And so every time that you defeat one of these bosses, the characters are just shoving them or like tossing them out of the tree through the windows. And so like the general with the gun, he gets like blasted with like the lighter by Siobhan, and he just boom, gets thrown out of the window. And then you do kind of the same with Lamia. Gwen does it this time, and then you get to the top, and you find the Duke, and so you confront the Duke, and you are basically trying to get some information out of him. He's like, I can't believe that you defeated Lamia, and he gives you a cryptic message that the Kalik themselves had given him, or maybe his ancestors, like a while back. And basically, it's kind of like I don't know, just like a passage, and it says like 4 adventurers or whatever are going to fight a human. Let's say, I don't know, I'm like paraphrasing, at the 13th hour, when
Right.
the clock hits the 13th hour. And basically that's all that they give him. And after he says all that, he runs and he jumps out of the building, of the tree, to kind of make his escape. Obviously he lands, he breaks his legs, and who is out there also because she got thrown out? Lamia. And then he's like, Lamia, thank goodness, pick me up and let's get out of here. And then she's like, hey, you have to pay your debt. Where's my next meal, basically? And then he's like, don't worry about it. You'll get it soon. Let's get out of here, and let's go to the king. And then she's like, nah, you'll do. And then she just munches the Duke, bro. It's really good. And
Yeah.
basically you have reclaimed finally Sky Garden. I guess reclaim is maybe not what happened, right? Because you didn't own it. I guess the party didn't. But basically, you got rid of all the gray squirrels, and the red squirrels, I guess, which is only Bruce, are now have a home. All the prisoners, all the people that have been basically done injustice to in this town can kind of take it to themselves, become like a city again, and everything would be good. Basically, is kind of the point.
Right.
So at this point, you kind of disband again, because Bruce is like, okay, I have a lot of work to do. I'm finally back in Sky Garden. We have to release all these prisoners. We have to put like a good like council in place so that we can take care of all these people. We want to like get rid of all the fascist memorabilia, and just like, kind of make this tree like good again. And then Verm and Siobhan are like, cool, that's fine. We're going to go back to Merida. We have this cryptic passage. Maybe Aquila can help us. And Aquila being the plague master in Merida. And we can understand what the 13th hour means. And so you go back to Merida, and you get greeted by a really, really cool character named Leo, the Blade Master of Merida. And Leo has been talked about by Vern before because he looks up to Leo. He wants to be as strong as Leo, and he hopes to wield weapons just as Leo wields his weapons. And Leo basically tells Verm and Siobhan this is as far as they're going to go. And Verm's like, I can't believe I'm doing this, but duke it up. We're about to fight. And Leo's like, I'm sorry, but nothing's going to save you. And then you're like, okay, I mean, yeah, sure, it's going to be a fight that I'm going to lose maybe by plot, but let's see what happens. And Leo uses a really strong attack. It has a really cool animation where it's like he has like double, triple, quadruple people right behind him as he's traveling. And then he stabs Verm through the eye. Through the eye. And Verm kind of like, they're in a bridge, I failed to mention. And Verm kind of like walks towards the bridge, kind of to the edge of it, and just falls into the river, just like Saga did, 6 months earlier. And Siobhan is beside herself. She can't believe that happened. Leo isn't going to hurt Siobhan because he knows that she's royalty. So she just like brings her to the palace. And then the season ends.
Yeah. The season ends. What a shocking moment.
Yeah.
So in the video game book club Discord, we have the game of the month discussion channel where we all kind of talk about the game as we're playing. And there were multiple moments where, because everyone plays at different paces, so if you if someone sends a message that has a potential spoiler, we do the spoiler tag. And I think it happened for all of us where we got to this one point and we sent like a spoiler message like, what just happened? Are you kidding me? Like he just died. What? What's happening in this game? So super shocking moment. Yeah, so stark and like sudden. But yeah, I mean the game goes on. The a season passes. You rejoin Siobhan, who's now an apprentice to the Plague Master. The Plague Master, she tells him of what the Duke said, the 13th hour. He interprets that as daylight savings time. Basically, he says like, there's one day a year where the humans turn their clocks back, and it results in a 13th hour. Um,
We're going back to standard time. Going back to standard time.
sure. Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Hey, daylight savings is when we go forward in time, Benny, and then
My bad, bro.
standard. We're going back to standard time when we go back 1 hour.
Okay, okay. But so this is
Just a
what
little correction.
happens. This this is what happens. And he says, so he basically interprets this as when this happens, when the 13th hour strikes on this day, the 13th god is going to show up. And he says, but don't worry, I have a weapon. I have the legendary weapon Excalibur, and I'm going to use it against the Yellow God. But I can't let you see it unless you agree to become the next Plague Master.
Yeah.
I know this is a big decision, so take your time. Why don't you go,
Take the day off.
take a few days off and come back to me with a decision.
I have a question, Ben.
Go ahead.
What did you think was Excalibur at this point? Did you have any ideas where you're like, whatever, I'll just get surprised?
I don't think I had any ideas. I was just like, okay, I guess we'll see what it is.
I thought.
Did you?
I was thinking. I don't know why I thought this, because I think I paused the game here, maybe like one of my gameplays, and I just like, went to do something else and came back another day, and I thought it was maybe like there's a lot of cooking in this game. Like a lot of NPCs are cooking, and I thought it would be like rat poison or something, or some sort of like, because it's an exterminator and they like got some poison and they're gonna cook and make some sort of like cake or cookies or something for the Yellow God, and they'll eat it, and they'll die. But I'm so far off, but we'll get there in a second. So Siobhan's like, hey, I have the day off. Actually, this is a pretty interesting thing. You can walk around with Siobhan in the whole town of Murida, and you get a different different dialogue for all the characters that you've talked to, because you were Vern before, but you're Siobhan now, and you've been living there for months probably at this point, or maybe 1 month or something like that. And so you have like a relationship with the people of Murida. So you walk around the palace and people's like, oh, hey Siobhan, oh hey, oh Siobhan, what are you doing, little Siobhan? Oh, finally Plague Master Aquila gives you a day off. Oh my god, you've been working so hard. So that kind of touch from the developer is also really good. But of course,
Yeah.
what does Siobhan want to do? She wants to go see her friends, So she goes to Sky Garden, where you see that it's changed a ton. So they have these like beautiful flags portrayed in the front of the tree. It's very welcoming. There's flowers sprouting all over as you walk into the tree. And then, as Ben said earlier, when you talk to NPCs in the Sky Garden, they tell you this place sucks, turn away. And now you talk to them and they say, this place is the bomb, you should stay, which is pretty good. And then basically you go and meet Bruce and Gwen. Bruce, Anton, and other prisoners from Sky Garden have become like a council. They're like a council now, and they decide what happens in Sky Garden, which is a theme of this game. Like, what sort of hierarchy is happening in every town, right? So in like Crane Bale is like a kind of like a monarchy, but it's more like because of like religion, and they're very like traditionalist. And then in Murida it's kind of also a monarchy, but it's kings and queens. And then here was like a fascist group before, and now it's like a Senate/council situation. So you kind of get to see the different, I don't know, kind of like political perspectives that the developer wanted to show. But basically, they kind of like talk about Verm. They all are mourning him, and then Gwen's like, "Yo, but look at this. they found someone found who found it. Ben, do you remember who found the
No, I don't
sword?
remember. I don't remember specifically.
I don't remember specifically, but somehow the trio has the pocket knife from Verm that was washed ashore somewhere in Murida, and someone went to bring it over to them. And it's like disgusting, it's rusted, it's like broken, and they're like thinking of him and they're sad. And then Gwen's like, but I heard a rumor recently that there's a ghost or something like that living in Vinium, which is another city that you have not been to. So maybe it's not a bad idea to go see if Ghost is Verm, basically. And Bruce like, got it. He's helped me so much, and I haven't repaid him at all for all the help that Verm gave me. If this is him, I want to be the one to go see him. So he's like, I'm gonna go to Vinium, and then Gwen and Siobhan at this point are kind of convinced that they will find Verm again, and so they're like, Gwen's like, I need to go back to the White Hall where she's from because there's a I don't know what they call it, but basically a Bunsen burner.
They call it like a forge.
A forge. There's a forge for us to repair this pocket knife. That's the least we can do for Verm.
Yeah.
And so they kind of, again, another moment where you separate and you do two simultaneous things.
Yeah. So we have two kind of branching paths here. We'll go over both quickly.
Yeah.
Gwen and Siobhan go to the White Hall, which is where Gwen's from. It's essentially a science lab. They show up, they have to do the classic going through the sewers, so you get a couple levels of like sewer traversal, fighting enemies and stuff. You make your way in and you find the lab essentially empty. There's all these rows of rodent cages that were previously filled with all kinds of rats like Gwen, who are being tested by the scientists. And now they're all empty, and Gwen doesn't know where any of them are. So they continue going, and they're confronted by this big rabbit, George. And George is Gwen's ex. And so they kind of explain to George what they're here to do. George is very hostile to this because George is like, it's hard to describe. He almost venerates the gods. He's like, the gods give us our life, they take care of us, I will not allow you to go against them, basically.
They
So
take care of us, but also they take from us, right? So
Right.
he like all they know, all George knows is the life of a lab rat. I mean, that's he's a rabbit, but all of them are just lab rats technically. That I know that term is vulgar, but that's what they are. And so they get taken care of. They live in these like small cages, and then they also experiment on them. So they're all, have the prosthetics and stuff, which is brutal.
Right. Yeah. Gwen has a prosthetic leg. George has like some sort of cranial device put on him. So clearly there's crazy stuff. But it seems like the lab is being shut down. So all of the mice there, all of the animals there have either died or been relocated elsewhere. So Gwen is like, fine, whatever. They have their fight. Again, pretty unremarkable boss fight. This one is not that the boss fights are unremarkable, because they're not, but this one's pretty unremarkable. You defeat George. He's like, whatever. I'm not a part of this. And so they use the Bunsen burner, which is the forge, to repair Verm's knife, and that's kind of the end of this arc.
Yeah.
We then go to Bruce, who arrives in Vinium. Vinium is essentially modeled after like ancient Rome.
Yep.
Everybody is walking around in like togas. There's like grapes being grown to make into wine. There's a Colosseum. There's not a ton to do here. You essentially just find Verm working the fields. He's pretty much
you find
slave.
Ghost,
Ghost, correct. Yeah, you find Ghost, who is Verm.
Who is Verm?
He's missing his eye because, as we all know, it got punctured, so it's gone now. And he's basically just working the fields. He's a slave, pretty much. He's working the field for someone else. Bruce finds him and is like, "We need you back." And he's like, no, I'm done with my old life. He's very reflective. He thinks that, previously he was so tunnel visioned on revenge that he kind of lost sight of why he was even doing it. He was essentially just in a bloodlust. Nothing else mattered to him. He wasn't doing it for any greater purpose. It was just pure revenge, mindless, and he doesn't want that anymore. He's
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, I can't join you.
Leo, in their fight, Leo told them that his attacks don't have any weight because he
Right,
doesn't have any conviction or any
right.
purpose, and he lacks purpose. And he's like, "What do you mean? My purpose is to kill the Yellow God." And Leo is like, "Brother, that's not a purpose, you know." And that's why
Right.
he's so reflective. And he's like, "I'm done. I'm done with that life." Leo's right. You know,
Yeah.
he loves Leo. Like Leo is his hero, and just being told by your hero that you're nothing or that you don't have any conviction, and it was devastating for him. So he's like, I'm here in this mushroom farm. I'm kind of like a pseudo slave. I'm okay with that life.
Yeah. So Bruce kind of accepts defeat. Like there's no dialogue options really. You can't convince him in any way. So Bruce is just like, okay, well, I guess I'll go. Bruce goes to leave, and he's apprehended by the guards of Vinium. They think he's this like exotic red squirrel. They think he'll make a great attraction in the Colosseum, and they throw him in. They
Eesh.
throw him into the Colosseum. He's totally, Bruce isn't a warrior. We know this, so he's pretty much helpless. Um, Verm like catches wind of this, and I guess it inspires him. So he jumps down into the Colosseum to take on the champion of the Colosseum. We get this very cool boss fight where Bruce is driving a car. It's like a chariot style fight
Mm-hmm.
where Bruce is driving a car, Verm is on top of the car, and then the champion of the Colosseum is also on top of a car. The champion is like this cartoonish Wolverine like
Yeah,
character.
yeah.
It's very funny.
And Berm doesn't
Um,
have a weapon, and the Coliseum is made out of Legos because Vinium is
yeah.
in like a Toys R Us basically, and
Mhm.
so he like gets a Lego brick out of the Coliseum, and that's his weapon. So you do that boss fight, epic again. Such great scenes on these like boss fights. While easy, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't take away from how cool it is, and
Yeah.
and you win, and then Bruce is like, dude, like you can live for something. It doesn't have to be the Yellow God, but like you can live for something. And basically, word goes around to like the chief or whatever, the Senate master or whoever he is, the emperor maybe of Vinium, that they apprehended the red squirrel who is the council person for Sky Garden, and he's like, oh my god, like this is the person that you capture. Like, are you joking? They're gonna kill us. Like, you can't do this. And so he's very apologetic. He is so apologetic, in fact, that he gifts Verm and Bruce a house in Vinium, and he also gives them the mushroom farm of Vinium where Verm was working. And Verm's like, I don't want it. Give it to the other workers that basically were working the farm. Cool. You get a house. You go into the house, and you can decorate it based on some side quests that you've done or not done at this point. You can decorate it with certain items. That's pretty cool. And then the whole clan, the whole party reunites in this house, in the house that Verm has now. And obviously Siobhan and Gwen are so happy to see that Verm is alive. They bring him his pocket knife, which now has a new color. It's green instead of red. It is, refurbished by them. And Gwen has a present for Verm too. And so he asks Siobhan and Bruce to step out, and he gives him a prosthetic tail. So he hadn't had a tail this whole time. Now he has a tail, and she's like, just like me, you are complete, but with this prosthetic tail. Of course, that is a metaphor of him being complete because he's back again with his party, and he's back with the people that actually love him and care for
Yeah.
him. And that's who he has to fight for, not for just killing the Yellow God, because he doesn't care about anything else basically. And so you're back together again, and there's one more thing left to do.
It's time to go to Merida. Time to take
Time
down
to
the
go to
king.
Merida. You gotta take
Yeah.
down the king.
Yeah.
Not
so
really.
they-
You wanna take down the Yellow God, or alert the king of the Yellow God.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, but basically, like, everyone is on high alert for the party right now. So you get back to Merida, and they're basically formulating a plan because they need to they kind of split up. Siobhan goes to the Plague Master again. She accepts the title of Plague Master. Basically, she decides to succeed him, and he shows her what Excalibur is. So he reveals Excalibur to be an unexploded bomb from World War II. There's like this lore, there's kind of a lore drop where he says, you know, many seasons ago, these fire eggs rained from the sky. He's clearly referencing like the bombings of London in
Yep.
World War II. And there's now an unexploded bomb that the rodents have seized, and it's located in Big Ben, basically, aimed directly at Parliament, and Murida is below Parliament. So they've kind of re engineered this bomb to be active again, and it's rigged up on this, mechanism that's going to fire it. And he
It's like a
says,
ballista kind of, and it's gonna
right, like a
shoot it
ballistic.
out. Yeah.
Exactly. And he says, when the Yellow God shows his face, I'm going to fire the bomb. We're going to kill the Yellow God. Some of the citizens of Murida may die as well, but yeah, I'm willing to make that sacrifice. And Siobhan is like, no,
Whoa.
like, I hard disavow. She's like, I'm not doing this. I'm out of here. She runs back to the party, and now the goal is clear. Now the goal is like, we need to get to the royal court, stop the plague master, because, or, evacuate the city at the very least, because if we don't, we are going to, countless lives in Myriad are going to be lost.
Yeah.
Who knows how many? It's hard to quantify. Um, but so they need to strategize. They need a plan. They meet up at the bar with the ruffians from earlier, who now are like very politically active for some
Very.
reason,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Yo, we'll help you. We'll help you organize a
Protest.
riot,
Yeah.
protest, riot, whatever. We're gonna storm the Capitol. Come talk to us when you're ready to go." And this is kind of the no turning back moment of the game. Basically, you have kind of the opportunity now to go. Once you talk to them again, it's the end game sequence starts and doesn't stop. So you have an opportunity now. They tell you to like pursue any dead ends, leads, whatever.
Side quest. Anything that you want to do.
Yeah, basically you have the opportunity to, there's four kind of missions, and each one is dedicated to one of the members of the party. And so if you want to kind of complete the full story for the game, I think it's optional. I don't think you have to do
Yeah.
it.
No,
But
you don't.
it unlocks, doing each one unlocks sort of like an ultimate ability for each. And the side quests are pretty basic. It's just like, it's mostly just returning to areas that you've already seen.
Returning to the areas where the characters come from, and basically
Yeah.
they have some growth, some character growth that you witness, and by that growth happening, then they unlock like their ultimate ability. For example, Siobhan goes back to Cranebale. She gets told that her mommy is so mad at her, and she needs to see her immediately. And Siobhan's like, I don't want to, like she's always the kind of like polite, like does as she's told, like mole, But in this case, she's like, no. She says no for the first time. And she's like, no, I don't feel like I need to see her. And in time, I will probably want to. But right now, no. Like, no, thank you. And the guard is like, no, well, I'm taking you by force. And so you fight him. You win. And then you unlock like a better fire ability or whatever.
Yeah.
Gwen has probably the most fun one, where she goes back to Whitehall, and she doesn't really have like a reason to. She just, you just go back and you want to like figure out what's going on. George, of course, had said that they were gonna kick everyone out and they're gonna shut down the lab, and maybe she wanted to see it one last time. And you can press a button that is like an alarm, like emergency alarm button. And so George is like, do not press that. Do not press that. You have no idea what you're going to do if you do that. And Gwen's like, whatever, let's do it. You press the button, an alarm siren sounds, and you start hearing those boom, boom, boom steps. And you confront the white god, the god that had experimented on Gwen, the god that had made her life miserable. but also I guess giving her a place to live and giving her food. So very conflicting emotions, and you fight him. And this is the first time that you fight a human, I guess, that you can defeat, not like Lance at in the prologue. The cool thing about how they went about this fight is that you only fight the hands. So you fight like the hands of the human, and then behind the hands is kind of like dark. It's like shadow. You can't really see anything. So you kind of see these floating hands, a la Super Smash Brothers, Melee.
That's what I was gonna say. The master hand.
The master hand, and so you have this epic fight, and it's the hardest fight that you had at that point. Each hand has like 600 HP, and they hit really hard and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really cool encounter. The other ones are pretty basic. I think Verm goes back and fights Tiger again. Tiger, the cat from earlier in the game. He fights Tiger and gets Tiger's leash or collar, excuse me, that you can kind of do some other stuff with.
You can bring it to a cat in Vinium, and the cat's like, well, this is not mine, but this is really funny. Thank you. And then he gives you the bell, and the bell is an item that you can equip. But Verm also has like his little thing with the Scissor Sisters.
Right. Yeah. So there's like a character outside of the bar who basically accuses the Scissor Sisters of like assaulting him and on a mission, and asks you to go like either bring them back or kill them, and he tells you where they are. And so they're located in this like cursed town or cursed village, and you don't really know why. You go there and you find them. One of the sisters is totally incapacitated, and they tell a very different story. They say that, he essentially attacked them. They were defending themselves, and you're kind of more inclined to believe them because the other guy just kind of seems like a scumbag. But before you do that, you have to defeat what's cursing this town, and it turns out to be this King Cobra that's like within the borough of this town. So that was a pretty cool moment. That was a really cool boss fight, I thought.
Yeah.
Was there anything else significant about that you
well
remember?
you do the fight, and then the sister teaches Verm his ultimate ability. So she's like, I know this is how this is what you're doing wrong, this is what you should do. So no, that's the only thing. I mean, there's a lot of lore. There's like a whole like 5-book thing that you can read about this city, and then you kind of learn like what happened to it and why it kind of is in this state of no one abandoned, basically. And then you have probably another interesting one, Bruce's. And Bruce's one isn't, Anton's like, hey, you kind of have lost your musical ability, and you gotta bring it back. So you have this like music kind of mini game that you do. It's fine. You win, you get a new flute or an ability and whatever. The cool thing about it is that you get an extra piece of dialogue, side dialogue, a bonus dialogue, I guess, that is optional. If you go to find the Captain Aiden, who is in the dungeons of Sky Garden, he himself said that he wanted to be thrown in the dungeons. I think he chose to be thrown in the dungeons. I think Bruce was like, you can either be exiled and leave, or you can, I don't know, be in the dungeon. He's like, cool, I'm going to be in the dungeons. And you as Verm can have a conversation with him. Did you have a conversation with him?
I don't think I did.
It's really interesting. It's basically, this guy is fascist, and he's kind of like talking to Verm about what it means to be strong, and what a society can only be ruled by the strongest. And there's a lot of lore books that talk about how, I think I wrote it down because I kind of forgot, but basically it talks about a cycle that the strong mice breeds complacent mice. Complacent mice breed weak mice, and then weak mice, because of their struggles, then have to breed strong mice, and then the cycle kind of repeats. And he's like, how did you get Sky Garden with strength and violence? Like, how are you different than me? And Verm unfortunately, he's not versed well enough to like have these conversations because he never really thinks about stuff like this. Like someone like Siobhan or Bruce or Gwen probably would have had a better conversation with Captain Aiden. But I thought it was really interesting because we have all had conversations with our friends and family about, difficult political views, and you don't know what to say, and they say something, and then you probably don't know what to say, and then you end up just fighting, and then no one gets into anything. And you basically have to have that conversation in real time with Captain Aiden. I think the first option that I did was I just called him a twat. I was like, well, you're just a twat. And that's it. And then he kind of is like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You can't even have a serious conversation with me.
Actually, that's an ad hominem attack.
But that part was funny. But no, basically, his point is that cycles always repeat, and it's better to have a tyrant because at least you can behead a tyrant. And if you have basically a group of people that are managing a city, once they turn quote unquote bad, he doesn't use those kind of words, but he's like, once they do turn bad, how do you behead a tyrant that you can't see? And so he's like, that's why my ideology is better than yours. And Verm ponders for a moment, and he still says, nah, it's still trash. And he explains, so Captain Aiden's like, so what's the ideology? How should we do this? And he says, well, I believe in the mushroom. He doesn't say Mushroom Kingdom, but I want to say Mushroom Kingdom because it's funny. But he basically believes that a mushroom, on the surface, it just looks like it's individual mushroom caps. But underneath, it's a web, and it's like a fungi kind of interlaced society where everyone has to pull their weight. So he's like, I believe in a society that can all pull their weight and all be equal in the things that they're good at. And so you kind of like divide everyone in like their best qualities, and everyone works together. Everyone's equal for the betterment of the society. I believe in a mushroom society. And Captain Naden is like happy that he told him that at least he's fighting for something, that at least he like knows that he wants like to achieve something, which is this mushroom society or whatever. And then you go away, and that's it. That's the side quest. It's just a conversation. I thought it was pretty good. I think a couple people on the Discord have like mentioned it, that they enjoyed it because it does give you a different perspective. So yeah, I don't know. I thought it was cool.
Maybe these fascists have a point,
dude. That's why it was difficult, and that's why it's an interesting conversation because sometimes you are Verm. Sometimes you kind of have these conversations that are difficult, and you don't know what to say. And someone who is prepared to have this debate with you because they have like, I don't know, in the shower, they're showering, they're just thinking about what they're going to say to you. And then they go and they tell you all of this. You're caught off guard and you don't know what to say. And I think a lot of us have probably experienced
they treat that lack of preparedness as a victory.
Exactly. It's not at all. It's not at all. But it's cool that Verm kind of starts that way.
That's really interesting. Yeah, so I think I missed that, and I saw you guys talking about it and wasn't familiar with it. But yeah, that's really cool. I think that's a really interesting thing that the developer included. Definitely.
And then I did the Game Dude challenge. I went and played that game. It's a Game Boy game. I love Game Boy games. It's just a platforming game. It's just like their extra content. I thought maybe I would win an item or something if I like beat the game without dying or something. So, I beat it without dying, whatever. But I didn't win anything. Just bragging rights, I guess. And that's I think the extent of the side quest. You find some paint, with the turtles. You go to like a train, and there's a hidden item in the train or whatever. You try to tie up everything. Then you go back to the ruffians, the hooligans in the tavern in Murda, and you say, we're ready. Let's get it going. And so they start a protest, and you realize that the protest that they started didn't really get the momentum that they desired. They have been like speaking out to the people, hey, we're being mistreated. We got to like rise up against this Duke. He's bad or whatever, and let's go fight him. And no one really rallied with them. So you're like, this is going to be tough. You start fighting hordes of enemies. You eventually make it to the palace, and then you realize that all of your friends, let's call them, that you've made along the way in your journey are there to support you, to fight, to lend their paw.
But it's dependent on if you did those side quests.
Is it?
I did not know that. For example, the Scissor Sisters will show up if you went and investigated that. George the Rabbit will show up if you went back to the lab. All of these things, like the help you get is dependent on how many of these side quests you track down, which is kind of cool.
That is, I did not know that. That's awesome. I thought they would just show up regardless, but that's great. See, that's why you do your side quests, kids. Then, so they fight the horde of guards that are guarding the main entrance, and then one of the hooligans tells you, "Hey, I have a side tunnel. Come with me." So you go and you go through the side tunnel, and you make it to the palace. At this point, you separate. Verm goes to confront the king, while Siobhan, Bruce, and Gwen go to confront Aquila. The reason why they go to confront Aquila is because they don't want the bomb to go off, right? And so you go up there and you start with them first. You go through the secret tunnel or whatever to get there. You confront him, and Aquila also wants to school Siobhan in like what it means to be strong, what sacrifices you're supposed to make for the better of the people. And again, it's like another rehearsed conversation that if you don't have anything to say back, it sounds like a victory to the person that said all of these things. And it's a question that a lot of games have made us ponder recently. Avowed asks us the same question: do we sacrifice a lot of people to, you know, or the, what was it, Ben? I forgot already. You have to like kill or explode a relic, a sanctuary. Yeah,
the Adra.
Or you kill a lot of people basically, and so you have to make a decision there, and that's what he tells Siobhan.
Yeah, so it starts, you know, the boss fight where it's crazy. So Plague Master Akil, like we said, is like a plague doctor. He's got the robe on. And you're like, okay, you know, maybe he talks about like how old he is and he's about to retire. And you're like, okay, maybe this will be an easy fight. The fight starts and he like rips off his robe and he's like jacked.
He's jacked and he starts levitating and you're like, what?
He does. And then this like disembodied voice starts going. It's like this pre-recorded thing and like the classic robot voice that you probably hear all over TikTok. And it's like about, you know, humans, their impact on the environment, their, you know, destruction, extinction, everything like this. There's also a timer on the screen. The fight is timed. I think you have 6 minutes to beat the fight. Otherwise, I guess the bomb, you know, launches. It wasn't super tight for me. Maybe it is tight for other people.
I think I had like 100 seconds left or something. Still.
Yeah, you beat him in plenty of time. And you disarm the mechanism that's going to fire the bomb. So the city is now safe. The bomb is not going to shoot, at least. And we go back. We change perspective. Before you go to Verm, the perspective goes to the throne room. So in the throne room, the king is freaking out. This, you know, riot is getting more successful. The rioters are getting closer to the castle. The king freaks out. He orders Excalibur to be used right away. The Yellow God's not even here, but the king is like, fire the bomb right now. End the riot, fire the bomb. The king, you know, all of the king's guards, all of the king's advisors are basically too scared to do anything. So the king kind of starts to walk out of the room to go give this order. But Blade Master Leo is there. Blade Master Leo implores the king not to do this, to think about, you know, what his mother, the previous ruler, would have done in this situation, but the king is not hearing it. He's walking out of the room, and Leo takes matters into his own hands and stabs the king, kills the king. After he does this massive guard, like the head of the guard, enters the room.
Yeah.
Diego, if you've, you know, like the Dark Souls 1 bosses, shoot, I'm forgetting their name.
Yeah.
Right now, but the duo boss.
The duo boss, yeah.
One of them looks like the giant. Exactly. One of them looks like the giant guy in that fight. He enters the room. He has the kind of like scary writing. He's been kind of a presence in the whole game so far, and you've been anticipating a fight with him, but his fight is now with Leo. And Leo tries to plead his case. He's not having it. They go at it, and it cuts now to Verm. So Verm enters the throne room, basically sees the carnage. Diego's dead. the king is dead, and basically, what is there to do? Leo is sitting on the throne. Verm approaches, challenges him once more, and you have the last boss fight with Blade Master Leo. And
Yeah, and this is the first time that I got a game over in the game.
Was it really?
Yeah, the only time and the first time that I got a game over in the game. I think up until this point, no character had died for me. But basically, you go into this fight with Blade Master Leo, and he kind of notices that you look a little bit different and that you have a more conviction now. And he's like, okay, give me all you've got. And so every time I play with Verm, I just rage first, and then I hit my big attack, you know?
Yeah.
But I raged, and then Leo went, and he killed me with 999 damage. And I was like, oh my god, I'm so dumb, you know? And so I got game over, and I got respawned back into the shrine in the palace. And so I went again, got into the fight with him, and this time I used just my ultimate immediately, you know?
Yeah.
And I defeated Leo in one hit. And yeah, basically you kill.
I think
hero.
there's a way to. I think there's a way to spare Leo. So there's
What? Really?
there's a specific thing that can happen in the fight where you break his needle when he attacks you. You
Oh.
basically parry him the same way he parried you. And if you do that enough, he runs out of
How do you
needles.
do that? How do you parry?
I didn't do this, and I don't remember specifically. I didn't do this, but I know of it. But so there is technically a pacifist outcome to this fight, but I don't think either of us got it. We both defeated Leo.
Yeah.
But now the bomb has been disarmed. Leo's dead, but it's time to confront the Yellow God. This thing that we've been ready to do this whole time, trying to go after the Yellow God, and it's time. The gang heads to Parliament, basically, which is where the Yellow God is set to appear. Once again, the room fills with purple smoke. You hear the footsteps, boom, boom, and it is go time. It's kind of a multi-stage fight. Yeah. You start by attacking his boots, but you don't really do anything. So you climb up onto this kind of pulpit, and now you get to attack his gloves, kind of his hands, in the same way that you fought the White God. Kind of a similar fight. Again, not very hard, unfortunately.
Not very hard.
But you get through
epic.
it.
Epic.
Yeah, super epic. And you complete the fight, and it's, the gang has a moment of like, it's not enough. We're not damaging enough. But there's something behind you. Behind you is like a royal staff of Parliament, this giant gold staff. They combine their might, they jump up in the air and smash the Yellow God in the head. He falls down. He's laying on the ground. You get this crazy scene where you see the Yellow God's face for the first time, because previously it was just a mask that you couldn't see through.
And the face mask has like a crack in it.
It's cracked, and you see his eyes, and he's like looking crazed, basically, because he's just been assaulted by a group of rodents.
Yeah.
And yeah, he has a moment. Verm now is in position to potentially kill the Yellow God, but he spares him, and he says, "Run, get out of here right now, and never come back." The Yellow God books it, and that is kind of the end of the main narrative. You defeat the Yellow God. Even though it's kind of been revealed at this point, obviously, that there's multiple Yellow Gods, and this Yellow God definitely isn't even the same one as the one that killed Lance at the beginning of the game.
Of course.
But that's kind of it. We get kind of a epilogue where the town is the Kingdom of Myriad is kind of without a leader, basically.
Yeah. They're like kind of trying phase.
It's a transition. They don't know who's going to be the leader. It seems like it might be Verm. There's been like a statue erected, but
he hates.
When given the opportunity, Verm stabs his knife into the throne and just kind of walks away from it. And that's kind of the end of the
And
game.
that's the end
Is there any
of.
details I'm missing?
No, what you can do is you can just have a conversation with all of the characters that you like
Yeah.
helped, or all the side quests in that epilogue. You have that funny moment where again you see your statue and you hate it, and it's really funny. And no, you have a conversation with Siobhan, and she's like, "What are we gonna do now? Are you gonna be the leader?" Like Ben said, and you say no, and you grab your pocket knife and you just stab it and leave it on the throne. And he said maybe there shouldn't be a leader right now. And then you see credits. They give you a really nice tune. Again, a song plays. There's a musician in the tavern, and he serenades you. And then you realize that the game was largely made by one person, and they had maybe like 4 other people that helped in terms of like sound design and maybe some graphic design, and that's it. And then they just thank like the countless of people that helped his Kickstarter. I think it was a Kickstarter or some sort of fundraiser that they held to like make this game. And that's it. You're kind of left to your own interpretation of what happens next. And
Yeah.
that will do it for us for this first half. That was Small Saga, and it was super fun to recap the conversation with Benny. And we're going to be back in the second half to talk about more about Small Saga and answer some questions that the community has sent to us on the Discord. We'll be right back. Welcome to part 2 of Video Game Book Club, where we answer questions that you have sent to us on the Discord. The easiest way to join Video Game Book Club is to join our Discord. We have the link everywhere in our bio, in the comments, in the description. And we play alongside our community every single month. We play Video Game Book Club games, but we also play a bunch of other stuff, games that we recommend to each other, new games that have just come out that people are wanting to try. And it's been really, really fun, super active. So if you like this sort of stuff, join the Discord. Obviously, like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and rate us on iTunes and Spotify if you're listening on the podcast things. There, plug-in is really difficult. I'm trying my best.
we are on our journey to 100 million subscribers, so we need all of your help. Subscribe to the channel, follow the pod. 100 million, we're coming.
Send this to 700 to 900 of your closest friends.
If everybody listening sends this to 10,000 of their closest friends and relatives, I think we can get there. So we'll try. That's probably not even right. It would probably have to be like several orders of magnitude more.
Hey,
anyways,
Benny, that was a really long recap. It's a dense game.
It is,
but it was a really, really good game. And Joe, who recommended and has been recommending this game for a whole year, he has brought us 3 questions this time, and I'm going to start you off with the first one. This is from Joe from the Discord. Is the quality moment per minute contained within Small Saga, I think that's a typo. Sorry, let me say that again. Within Small Saga, a definite proof that most gaming titles are too long these days? Is it finally time for short games to have their moment in the sun?
Yeah, so a good question and a 2-part answer. The answer to the first part is sort of. I think in ways it is, and in ways it's not. Like, the strengths of Small Saga are incredibly strong. The weaknesses of Small Saga are also a little weak. I think obviously we've kind of said it at this point, but the story, the visuals, the music, all of that in terms of, if we're quantifying it on the QGMPM metric, the new metric that Joe has introduced, quality gaming moment per minute. Maybe we need to start tracking that. But I would say yes, absolutely. Incredible work, musically, visually, story, such a dense, I think my playtime on this game was 8 hours, and we just spent an hour and 45 minutes talking about the story. That's so dense. That's so dense. Yeah. And it's not even wasted. It's not even... It's a good story. So in that aspect, yes. In terms of the physical act of playing the game, not as much. And it's not to the point where it's like an F grade or anything, but it's just like it could have been maybe a little better, right, in that aspect. So for the first half of the question, I'd say mostly. Second half of the question, it's something we touched on a little bit before in terms of game length. I think from our perspective, it's a little different because, for Video Game Book Club, we kind of need to pick a game that's realistically completable in the span of a month. And, JP and I both have stuff going on in the months that's not Video Game Book Club. So we don't have the ability to dedicate all of our time to doing this. We wish we did, obviously.
Of course.
So we can't be, and it's also like we're not the only people playing the game, right? We have our community of people playing the game with us. We can't be asking a community of mostly adults, right, that have stuff to do to play a 70-hour long game. That
Yeesh.
just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, so in terms of our show, I think we definitely appreciate the length of a game like this. And in terms of gaming in general, there's very few instances where a game I think really warrants that level of playtime, that like 50 to 100 hours of playtime, especially if it's a story driven game. If it's, something very replayable, maybe that's a different thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think too many times you get these like big open world games with, loaded with quests, and it's all just kind of slop. It's like, yeah, you've got open world, but 75% of the quests in the game are fetch quests, or it's just like going to this location and clearing it out, or it's like, finding towers and different parts of the map. It's just like it doesn't add to the experience. So to see a game like this that's the polar opposite, where it's such a small length of time crammed pack with so much content, is very refreshing, in my opinion.
I love the answer. I love the question too. I think for me, yes, I agree with you, Ben. I don't think you can say this is definite proof for the first half of the question that most gaming titles are too long, just because Small Saga is a short game that packs a punch in those 8 to 10 hours of game time. We just played Spiritfarer. Spiritfarer is an indie title. It has a lot of content. It took us like 30 plus hours to finish it. Granted, we did a lot of it. But that was really good. That was a really good 30-hour game. And 30-hour is not short by any means. So I think that for me, I love indie titles that are on the shorter side. I think indie titles by design, because it's only a handful of people usually who make them, they're not going to be extremely long. So I am biased towards games that take, 5 to 20 hours maximum. I love those types of games. I love being able to grab something, being able to finish it in a good time span. I also maybe think that this is something to do with our attention spans or something, where maybe a huge game is tough to play because we just can't dedicate every single day of our day-to-day life to playing it. Like sometimes I take 3 or 4 days break between my play sessions with these games, and when it's a game that it's so long, it'll take me months to finish something, and I can't do that. It also matters the quantity of games that are released. That's why I also probably can't play like really, really long games. But I think that, Small Saga packs a punch. There's hundreds and thousands of games that are short, that are incredible and that are worth it. But there's also a lot of games that are longer that are also worth it. I also, to talk about this question a little bit more, what I did was I started looking at like the best video games. Like when people say, oh, give me your top 10 best video games of all time, you go to the lists and people disagree or don't agree. It doesn't really matter. It's Ocarina of Time is up there. Super Mario 64 is up there. Whatever. Final Fantasy 7 is up there. Like all those games, they're actually around the 30-hour mark. And all these games, a lot of them are older, right? So they're not these huge open world, like insane content kind of grabs of games that Ubisoft started making, and that all these,
Yeah.
whatever, if you want to call out the developers, doesn't really matter, they started making. But the thing is, I think it was a wave. So before, you would buy a game took so long to make. It also had to be action packed in a small, 32 megabyte, 64 megabyte like cartridge. That's all you got. You got to add a lot of content. The games, you didn't buy a lot of games, so you had to spend a lot of time with the same game trying to find everything that you can. It's not like you could go online and do walkthroughs and stuff. I mean, you could when
you need the guide.
You need the
guide. You need the guide from
games
from
used to have
GameStop,
like a call system. You would have a 1-800 number to call so you can like figure stuff out. Then PS2, PS3 came out, or that generation of games, and you started seeing huge games. Oh my God, how can they pack all of this content in these games? I think we hit the peak of that wave of really long waves. Of really long games about 5 to 10 years ago. And now we're going down. We're going back to, no, we don't want 100-hour open world, a million side quest games anymore. I think we're tired of them. I think they are expensive to make. They are expensive to purchase. They don't work really well. You leave them halfway done all the time. I think a sweet spot for a game is about 20 to 30 hours, and that's kind of like the ride that everyone is riding right now, unless you play roguelikes, and roguelikes are replayable by nature. You don't need a lot of brain power. You don't need to remember a lot of things. You just need to remember with the mechanics of the game, and you can play it forever. And those are maybe, if any game that I play that it's more than 40 hours, it's probably because I've been playing a roguelike and I'm just replaying runs all over. So yeah, I really like this question. I don't think it's contained within Small Saga. I think any game can be good.
It's indicative of a larger trend.
For sure, definitely.
All right, I will ask you part 2 of Joe's question, which is, what is your headcanon for what happens to the party after the game ends? Who would you like to see end up where and with who? Wink, wink.
I thought this was good. I wrote down everything because I feel like I would have forgotten. So I have it right here. So we have talked again about how the lives of these rodents are not long, bro. Like, we just spent a year with them. 1 year, that's half of their life. And because we went through all the 4 seasons. And when we met them, they weren't young either. I mean, Verm was young, but besides him, they're all kind of like getting there. So I feel like Verm and Gwen especially, bro, they're getting old. They're more than middle aged. So I said that I think, we saw I think Verm leaves Merida and he goes to Vinium. He lives in his house. He occasionally checks in with the mushroom farm. He enjoys going to the arena. He lives like a solitary but like kind of like content life. I said he doesn't. He probably never goes and visits the other 3, but they always visit him, and he's happy when they do. Gwen, she can't sit still. She won't stay in Merida. She's just not that type of person, and she has a type. She's looking for that love. When Verm and Gwen were sitting on top of the shrine and they had that moment together and they were like, what do you want in life? She likes gruff rodents. She wants to find love. Maybe she's traveling around the world. I think she's traveling around with Dizzy. She's probably like Dizzy's biggest customer, and she's just trying to find where she's going to fit in. I think Siobhan is going to stay in Merida. There's a conversation that you have with the Plague Master about how, they, Plague Master Aquila, that it's hard for rodents to develop technologically because they just die so quick, right? So you just like need to work your whole life and leave all of this information to the next generation, which is coming in a year, So I think that probably stuck with her, and she's just like, let's get it. Let's lock in and start advancing. She like mentions a couple of times how she doesn't understand the language of the gods and she wants to. So she's probably just studying that as much as she can so that mice eventually and rodents eventually will be able to read god language. And then with Bruce, I don't know. I feel like out of everyone, he's probably set. He's a council person. He has a boyfriend. They're like, living life grandly now in Sky Garden. I don't really have anything else to add. I think he's probably enjoying life the most out of them. So yeah. Did you have anything like that? Anything different, or what do you think?
I mean, I think it's like possible for Verm and Gwen to end up together. Like, I think that's kind of something the game hints at a little bit, like you mentioned, with some of those scenes. It seems very like awkward and like they don't connect in the moment, but maybe that's because Verm is like so singularly focused on the task at hand
He
that he
is, yeah.
just doesn't even have the wherewithal for that. So, maybe there's a chance that something happens there. But yeah, no, I think I like your answer. Like, I totally agree with all that. I don't have a ton to add. Yeah.
Joe has a third question, Ben. And here we
You're
go.
wearing out your welcome, Joe. I'm talking directly to you right now. I'm just kidding.
What is your ultimate what is your ultimate moral takeaway from Small Saga? What moments led you to particular instances of personal conviction and encouragement?
Yeah, really good question. I think my ultimate moral takeaway is no matter what you do, to do it for something. There's too many people, I think, that walk around day to day in their lives, going about their business, just kind of doing what they need to do, eating, sleeping, not really pursuing any hobbies, just kind of doing it. And from the beginning of the game, we have Verm, who's his meaning in the game is revenge, right? And as we go, he learns kind of that meaning is hollow, that it feels not hollow because he's filled with rage, which is a very tangible emotion. But in reality, what does that accomplish? What does this task of revenge accomplish outside of personal satisfaction? And the answer is nothing. There's no weight behind his actions. Like Leo tells him, there's no weight behind his strikes. And it's not until, realizing the meaning he has within the party, and he has some of these deeper conversations like what you alluded to with the general about what it means to exist within like a society, basically. um, it's not until all that happens that he kind of gets his own personal conviction and he kind of finds his own meaning. So yeah, my that's kind of my ultimate moral takeaway is you need to find what your meaning in life is. That meaning is different for everyone in the party, right? It's different for Shaban, for Gwen, for Verm, for Bruce, and they all have different meanings, but they're all valid in their own ways. So it's up to you as an individual to find what your meaning in life is and to pursue that with, everything you've got, because that's all we can do in this life. So that's kind of what I took away from it.
Dude, that's beautiful, Ben. God, you always take away the best moral takeaways from these
Sure,
games.
sure, sure.
For me, it's slightly different. I really, really like that like conversation about the strong mice makes the complacent mouse and yada yada yada. But for me, my takeaway is basically quotes. Just because the history of the world shows that cycles repeat doesn't mean we shouldn't fight for what's right or what we believe is right. It doesn't mean that, oh, this always happens or, oh, this cycle always repeats. Well, be the person that you think you should be. Fight for the things that you think are worth fighting for. And those are personal decisions. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm going to save the world. But do what you think is right for you, right for your family, right by your friends, right by your own convictions, and strive for it. Don't let someone tell you that you're a weak mouse or you're like a complacent mouse or you're the strong mouse. It doesn't matter. If you want to be whatever you want to be, or if you want to fight for whatever you think is right, you have to go for it. I think this idea that we're stuck in a cycle and we're like pre-programmed or whatever to do what we're going to do and nothing is ever going to advance because we're stuck in this, whatever you want to call it, either simulation, cycle, or, we were given this hand and we were dealt this hand and that's what we're going to play with. Like, just like Ben said, find your purpose and like go for it and strive for it, basically. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's
the
kind
old
of my
quote. It's like, the history goes in cycles, but it's the old quote of like those who are ignorant of history are doomed to repeat it, right? If you don't know that the world is going in these cycles, you are doomed to repeat it. You're gonna make the same mistakes as your ancestors, but it's the knowledge of what's happened
Knowledge.
before. It's the knowledge we gain
Knowledge.
generation over generation, just like the mice in the game, that lets us enact change.
Thank you, Benny, for helping me out there with your beautiful words. But yes, that's exactly right. Um,
All right. I'm going to ask you our final viewer question. This one comes from Inferno Disco from the Discord. She asks, if you were a character in Small Saga, what rodent species would you be, and which settlement would you choose to live? Also, what would be your weapon of choice?
okay, I would be a porcupine
Ooh,
or maybe a beaver. I thought there was a lack of beaver
beef.
representation. A beaver is a rodent too, and I can live in the
Yeah.
water or I can live in the land. I love it. But no, I think porcupine probably. And my weapon of choice would be change, pocket change. Oh my god, can you imagine me, a porcupine, and on my back I have like those like dispense like when they give you coins at the bank and they give them to you in like a like it's like a paper roll really, but like imagine were those M&Ms like an M&M case, those like long ones where you put the tiny M&Ms in.
Right. Right.
Imagine if I had like fabricated one of those, but instead of dispensing M&Ms, it dispenses a coin at the bottom, and I'm slinging that thing, and then a penny comes out, and I toss
Oh
that
my
penny,
lord.
whapa, and then I say my catchphrase: "The gods say, cha-ching." Oh, too good. And then it depends on what comes next. I don't count the change. I don't know what the different changes. I got a penny, I got a dime, I got a quarter, I got a $50. Be careful with those half
Wow.
dollars. I got
Wow.
a dollar coin too. Shoo! I'm gonna deal some damage if my RNG gives me a $50 or a dollar. But yeah, I'm tossing some change attacks. Where would I
would you
live?
live?
Bro, the thing is, what a question, because you don't want to live anywhere.
Right.
In the post world for sure, you want to live somewhere, but in the during the game, it's like, ugh. So I said I would travel around with the lizard wizard, baby. The lizard
Oh,
wizard
let's
and
go.
I. Someone needs to protect him. I can't believe that the lizard wizard is by himself with all of this knowledge and he has no protection. Someone with bad intentions is gonna come and gonna take him away. So I will be the porcupine, the master of pocket change, the sword, the shield, and the pocket change of the lizard wizard.
What an unbelievable answer. I don't know how I am supposed to follow that up. I think I was just gonna say like an otter or something.
That is
Like
good.
you, but my favorite character was Lamia, the stoat. So
Yeah.
along those same lines, I was gonna say, an otter. Um, My weapon is my claws, because you know what? People think otters, they're so cute, they're so nice. Oh, look at them, they float on their backs, look at their
Oh, and
tummies, they
they
sleep
cuddle,
in
they
the water.
cuddle.
No, no. Otters got the claws, baby,
Yeesh,
and I'm gonna
yeesh.
show you them if you mess with me. Because I'm gonna spend my life doing what otters do. I'm gonna hang out, I'm gonna float on my back in the water. But if you challenge me, you will get these claws, my friend. And I think my preferred residence of choice has to be, it's got to be Sky Garden, right? I
Yeah,
think, post game Sky Garden has to be where you want to end up.
I
So
agree.
that's what I
I
got.
agree. And I'll be right there with the lizard wizard. So,
The Minister of Coin over here, though, with his coin launching attack. What an unbelievable
dude,
concept.
I thought about it today because I had to go get something, and it was cash only, and they gave me pocket change, and I feel like I don't buy things with cash anymore. And I was like, oh my god, imagine if I toss these coins like an
Yes.
attack. Okay, Ben, I have questions for you, so buckle up.
Oh no.
So this game is interesting in where they
Yeah.
focus on missable items. There's a meta mouse that tells you, don't worry about the missable items. If you miss something, like, it's okay. Just enjoy the game. Don't hyper focus on finding anything. However, it's not truly missable because they do give you opportunities like the point of no return for you to get all the items at any point. You can complete all the side quests, you can get all the items, you can find all the secrets. Other games definitely truly have missable items. They have missable scenes, secret dialogues, and stuff like that. So, what are your thoughts on missable items? How do you think Small Saga handles them? How do you think the gaming ethereal world in general handles missable items? And do you go for them? Do you not go for them? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Give me your
Yeah,
thoughts.
I think Small Saga handles it pretty much on par with other games, I would say. Like, I think it's still possible to miss stuff in Small Saga. I missed stuff in Small Saga. Like, I missed the dialogue with the general in the prison, right? I missed that. I found the MetaMouse that you referred to, but I didn't find the key for whatever reason.
You didn't
So
fish?
there's I didn't fish. Yeah, I didn't fish. But so I did miss stuff, and I wanted to. I completed a lot of the side missions in the game. Like, I did a lot of different stuff. I did all the optional character quests and everything. I just missed some of those finer details. Um, but I think that's okay. Like, I don't think it impacted my overall enjoyment of the game. Like, when I saw people in the Discord talking about, oh, did you find this? Did you find that? I was like, oh man, no, I didn't. But whatever. It's not. It didn't change my opinion of the game that I missed this one thing. I quoted the MetaMouse in the Discord when I said, a mouse can drive himself crazy if he, tries to complete everything in the game. Basically, I was like, yeah, it doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah.
But I think that's based on who you are, right? Like, I'm someone, I don't normally go for that like 100% achievement. I get what I want out of the game, and then I move on. Like, when Small Saga the credits rolled, I was like, great. I feel complete with this game. Like, and did I miss a few things? Yeah, sure, but like, that doesn't change how I feel about it. And that's kind of how I approach other games as well. Like, in general, I play a game until I feel kind of personally done with it. And
Yeah.
at that point, regardless of how many ultra secret side quests remain or how many collectibles remain, it's like, no, I'm done. I don't need the achievement. I don't need the trophy. Um, so I kind of felt, yeah, I mean, it was kind of on par with Small Saga and kind of the rest of games. And in general, yeah, I feel similarly about, how it is in other games as well. I know you have a different experience with that kind of thing. You are a little bit more of a completionist, so you probably have a different perspective.
I loved how in Small Saga, if you do miss something, you have the opportunity to go get it. That's kind of what I meant. You can go get it at no point, excuse me, are these items like blocked from you because of XYZ or plot points or anything. You at some point you can travel to every single town. You can talk to all the people that you need to. You can get everything. Yeah, and that's what I like about it. I love finding things. I love finding every single secret. I love exploring. Like when I play a game and it tells me, yo, you gotta go northwest to the next plot point, I say, okay, I'm gonna go every single direction that I can right now before I even go northwest. That's kind of how I play these games. And there are games where you can't go back to certain areas and you do miss things and you tell yourself, okay, I want to advance the plot a little bit. I feel maybe a little weak or a little strong and I need like, I don't know, X, Y, or Z. And then something happens in the story and then you're locked out of that area forever. And you're like, I didn't finish all the things that I wanted to do. And that's when it's frustrating. So whenever you
Right.
have the ability
Sure.
to go back, I like. But if they lock things just for locking things, and I get it, there's plot purposes and stuff, but it's still a video game. You can still allow me later in the story to make me go back to certain places.
Right.
So I'd rather find everything. I'm trying to change a little bit because we have Video Game Book Club. We have to complete a game every single month. Sometimes it's tough. Sometimes my deadlines, I'm right there at the end. I have 2 minutes left and I finish it right before the month is over. I'm notorious for that. And in part, it's because I want to do everything. Like in Spirit Fair, I got like 99%. Or did I get 100? No, 99. I think
No,
99, 98
yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm always right there. With Avowed, I wanted to complete every side quest. Even if it was boring, because some of them were boring, I still wanted to complete them. So I don't know. That's kind of how I am. But I think with this game, I was able to get everything that I wanted. I think I got most, if not every single fight, every single item in the game. So
I need to know what was behind the MetaMouse door, though. I
oh,
do need to know
it
that.
was Siobhan's ultimate weapon. It was a wizard wand or something like that. It was like the ultimate wand.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, because Siobhan's weapon gets upgraded through her like individual tasks, so I assumed that was it. But there's a new one?
There's like it's like yeah, it's a specific weapon. No, she gets upgraded because she gets a new ability. She gets a new ability,
Oh,
not
okay.
the weapon itself didn't get upgraded.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Got it.
So you need I can't remember I can't remember what the weapon is exactly, but it's a wizard wand. That's all I know. And it's if you know if you found the ultimate weapons because they have like a shimmer to them. If you equip
Mm.
them, they have like these little shimmers. And there's also an ultimate like equipable armor. You find 4 as well, and they also have like a little shimmer to them. So you know, okay, I've completed this and I can move on.
Got it.
Um, Ben, I have another question for you.
Okay.
When the dev wanted to steer Verm in the right direction, whether to advance the plot or to do whatever, they used his headaches as a way to make him do the right thing. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about how many times that was used? And did you like it? Did you not like it?
I did like it. My interpretation of that was less like a forced plot moment from the developer and more like essentially Verm has PTSD from what happened at the beginning of the game. He feels like he wasn't able to help his brother when his brother died because he got caught in the trap. And he now has essentially PTSD from that, where whenever he feels like he's about to abandon somebody, he gets this big pang of guilt that's represented by this like big booming sound effect that we know from the game. And he stops and he says to himself, I'm not running away. And then he turns back and, makes a different decision, basically. So I thought it didn't feel forced to me. It felt like character development, where he, in the past, may have run away from something, or he was so singularly focused on his goal that he was going to run away from something, but his past experience with his brother and with the guilt that he harbors from that physically wouldn't allow him to do that. So that was kind of my interpretation. I thought it was okay as a plot device.
I thought so too. I thought so too. I just wanted to see what you thought. I
Okay.
didn't actually think about it as PTSD, but obviously it makes so much sense, the way that you're explaining it. So yeah, I thought it was fine. I mean, I think I wanted to talk a little bit about how this game, if you look it up, it has 5 out of 5 stars, 1,500 or so reviews on Steam.
Wow.
There's not a lot of like content out there in
Yeah.
the web that talks about this game that much. So it's interesting to me because I thought 1,500 reviews on Steam was a lot, but still, I feel like it's missing a community that is a little more strong. What I did find was a lot of review threads on Steam about the game, and they were kind of like saying, I don't know, that they didn't like certain things about the plot, that they didn't like certain things about the characters, that they didn't like, maybe something like this, like a headache being used to like, the dev didn't know what to do, and so they made, Verm get a headache to steer him in the right direction or whatever. And it's just like, oh my
What are you
God. This
Dude.
game, this game was made by one person largely. And I feel like when you make a game and when you make a game, when you make a song, when you write something, like when we write reviews or when we talk about these games like that, we don't plan everything that we say word for word. We just say, this makes sense, boom, send it, like I can't believe that like a group of people or people in general would scrutinize this game so hard, as if the dev didn't just one day say, whatever, this makes sense, let's just go with it. Like that's as much as of like a thought that you would have sometimes when you don't know what to do. Or maybe they did. Or maybe they did, everything that they did was perfectly detailed and they knew exactly what they were going to do with everything that they did. But I just don't think that that's true. It made me mad that people were mad about certain decisions that the dev took.
That's like that's such a crazy opinion.
Such a
Like,
crazy opinion.
do you understand that the developer is telling the story they want to tell, and that Verm is not a independent agent in this story. Verm does not have his own free will.
Yeah.
Verm is a agent of the story. And the developer is telling the story of Verm's personal growth. Like, what are you talking about?
It's crazy,
The developer,
dude.
Verm wasn't trying to do something, and the developer reached their magical hand down in and turned him back around. No, dude, it's a story about growth. That's crazy.
It's a
That's
story about
crazy.
growth. It's a video game. It's a video game. It's
It's a
an
video
8-hour entertainment, video entertainment thing for you to enjoy, not for you to scrutinize as if it's a fifth grade poem from the 1800s that your teacher made you read and dissect so that you learn how to solve problems.
Right.
So just
Right.
relax, bro. There was so much of that. For you guys who
crazy.
want to know want to read some crazy people talk about this game and scrutinize it heavily, just literally Google like Small Saga, like Steam review threads or something like that, and you'll find some crazy crazy stuff. I usually do this. Like, I usually go out there when we prep for these episodes. I want to know what the people think. I want to know and find like different, did I miss something, plot points, some dialogues that were important. Maybe sometimes I interpret things. Sometimes we're tired when we play these games. Sometimes I'm tired. I read a piece of dialogue and it literally goes through one ear and it goes out the other. And I'm kind of like, okay, that didn't mean anything because I'm not super locked in all the time. But then I read it afterwards. I'm like, oh man, that's great. That makes so much sense. That's why we have these conversations, with Ben, with the community, so that we can like really enjoy these games together. And there's holes in the way that we experience these games, and what we're trying to do here at Video Game Book Club is to plug those holes and let everyone enjoy the game like wholeheartedly with the round experience. And I just can't believe that people online are just like saying some crazy stuff. But anyways, that's my rant. And that's the end of my questions. I don't know if you have any questions.
My only question for you is, what's your letter grade, man? What are we giving this game?
I have a letter grade for this game. I want to start by saying this game was good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I'm so glad that Joe has been asking for a year for us to play this game. I cannot believe how epic these battle scenes were. Again, those were my favorite moments in this game, where that a fight is about to go down and it's been built up by different text boxes. Obviously, again, this game was made by one person, so they didn't have like a million animators to be able to do everything that they were envisioning. They just had to kind of do what they had, and they delivered. Every time it built up to a big boss fight, it delivered. It was really good. I think this game is just a narrative game, though, and it's not a JRPG, turn-based RPG. First and foremost, it's just a narrative game. And you use the turn-based combat as a way to take a break from the narrative. I think I would have rather a game that was more of the latter and less of the former, but that's just my personal opinion. I think this game is super solid, and visually and artistically, it hits it. With the visuals again and with the music, it hits it. With the dialogue, I think it's funny, it's well written, but I think it's a game at the end of the day. And the gameplay mechanics of it, at some points, I was a little bit bored whenever I had to go through like some monsters that I could just kill and do things, and it wasn't really challenging me in a way that like I like games that challenge me. But that's a personal kind of like opinion.
Sure.
And I give Small Saga a solid B. A solid B for Small Saga.
Wow. Okay. I was hovering between B plus and A minus.
Okay.
I think we've talked about we talked about a lot of the strengths of the game, and we also talked about a lot of the weaknesses. I think the strengths far outweigh the weaknesses, but the weakness is a pretty big weakness in terms of the gameplay. So I think I'm probably at a B plus when I think about it. Probably at a B plus. I really enjoyed the game for what it is. For what it is, the compact package that it is, it's really good. It's in terms of the quality gaming moments per minute,
Ish.
advanced analytics, it is incredible. The goat. But I think I'm a solid B plus. I think this is such a good game in so many aspects. It has such a good story. It again, I keep coming back to the fact that this is an 8 hour long game, and it's like we're talking about it for so long. Like
I
we have so much
know.
to say about it,
Yeah.
which is like in itself a compliment. So
100%.
yeah, I think I'm at a solid B plus.
I like it. Also, I can't. We like haven't really mentioned this too much, but the representation that this game offers in terms of like, gender and sexual orientation is amazing. It's great. It's done with
Yeah.
with. It's very well done, and it's almost like it's just there, like how it should be. It's not like, oh my god, this and this. No, it's just like, hey,
No,
this is
yeah.
who I am. This is what I am.
The characters
that's
are
great.
just the
Love it.
characters.
And I keep
Yeah.
going. It's amazing, and I love that representation being seen in such a normalized way. So just wanted
Right.
to mention that. I think we're gonna stamp it B plus. You've convinced me.
Okay.
After this
Okay,
conversation, you gotta go to B plus. I love this
Got
game.
to.
Why am I saying B? I'm crazy. Stamp it right now.
No, you're not
Wapa.
crazy.
B plus. You already heard it here first from Video Game Book Club, and we can breathe, man. We can relax. Oh wait, we can't.
We can't breathe for
relax.
too long.
No, it's just
we
one
cannot
breath
breathe for too long.
because we never stop. We never stop at Video Game Book Club. There's no breaks. You go, you play one game, and then you play the next one because the time doesn't stop coming, bro. Months don't stop coming. The days don't stop coming. June is tomorrow, and tomorrow means we have to play a new game, and it's my turn to pick a video game. And everyone everywhere whispers in the night, whispers in the streets, whispers in the Discord, whispers in my text. I went to a party, an engagement party. I didn't even think I was going to be talking about video games. I saw friends that I hadn't seen in so long. I saw strangers that I've never met. And everyone was talking about one game. Everyone. I couldn't escape it. Claire Obscure Expedition 33.
Let's go.
And this game has taken me like crazy, Ben.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm officially picking, it's my turn, right? Claire Obscure Expedition 33 for June, Video Game Book Club 2025. And I did start it recently. And I had a long weekend. I had a Friday off, and then I had Memorial Day weekend, Memorial Day on
Yes.
Monday. And I think I put 12 hours in those 4 days
Yes.
in the game. And I usually am not like that. Like, it took me 2 weeks to finish Small Saga, and I only played for 9 hours. And in 4 days, I put more time on Expedition 33
That's
than
hilarious.
Small Saga. I've been really enjoying it, really loving it.
So you've started Small Saga. You've started Expedition 33. I have finished Expedition 33.
Oh my goodness, man.
I started it before we knew we were going to pick it as the game of the month. I had an inkling because of how big of a game it is right now. But I started it, and same as you, totally gripped by the game. I could not put it down for multiple weeks in a row. And I finished it, but I'm not done playing it. There's still a lot of stuff I have left to do, some like kind of optional content that I still want to do. So I will be playing it in June. Unbelievable game. I am so excited to keep exploring the world and to keep playing the game. And more than anything, to keep talking about it with the Discord community and to hear what you have to say in a few weeks when we talk about our progress on the Checkpoint, our other podcast. And more than anything, excited to come back in a month and talk about this game because it is absolutely incredible. Has to be the front runner for Game of the Year, I think. And I'm so excited to talk about it.
So excited. Also, this game, so many people in the Discord are playing it or have played it already. So if you say, if you post a screenshot about it, or if something crazy happens and you mention it, so many people jump in and start like saying, oh my God, it was crazy when that happened, So that always feels really good when you have a whole community around you when you're playing a game. So yeah, man, I've been really liking it. I'm excited to keep playing. I'm nervous. I know it's like 30 hours, 35 if you just do the main plot. It's like up to 50 maybe if you do everything. Whew, Benny, that's a lot of hours that I gotta put in. But I'm gonna lock in. You already know I'm gonna get there. I never not finish a game. And whenever you hear from us at the end of June, you'll see that I have completed Expedition 33. You know?
We'll see. We'll see how you're doing with when we record the checkpoint.
Yeah.
We'll see where you're at.
Yes, we will. Well, that will do it for us today on Video Game Book Club. We spoke about Small Saga. We told everyone officially that the game for June 2025 will be Expedition 33, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Check us out on, we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on everything. Obviously, the podcast will drop on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us. Thank you for being a part of the Discord community. If you're here all the way to the end, the 3 people that are still listening, thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Leave us a comment and tell us if you made it to the end.
Tell us if you made it to the end. You will hear from us again in about 15 days where we talk about Video Game Book Club and something else. Usually it's called the checkpoint. It's the show between the show. That's how we've coined it. And I definitely am going to bring a beautiful game to talk about. Drop Duchy, a game that I can't stop playing.
God.
It's so good, and I can't wait to talk about it more.
No.
Thank you so much for listening again, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.